came in here. Messed with my stuff. All right. How's everybody doing today? How do I? All right. Is that too big? That's perfect. You know what? I'm gonna lose the jacket if you guys don't care. We're right next to Boast. All right, we'll get started in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. You guys ready to learn how to write an offer? From the north, I don't say y'all, right? It's yous guys.
Use guys.
Yous guys. That's what we say up north. Do you have a sign-in sheet? I have an entire, well, maybe we should wait till everybody starts jumping on, huh? Yeah. Thank you. So this whole packet and everything, what I'm going to do is if you put your email address down on here, I'm going to email it out to you. Okay. So you don't have to worry about messaging Jenna, who is like, can you please tell people to stop emailing me? Got it. All right. Let's see if we got anybody jumping in here. All right. We'll get going. All right. All right. So guys, this is kind of part 4 in our new series that we're kind of just making up as we go. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to focus on making an offer, and I'm going to dive into some of the addendums as well. And can you mute?
Can hear nothing. Can hear nothing.
Can you guys all on Zoom make sure you mute, please? I know. I'm trying to. There they go. Okay. All right. Good. All right. All right. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go over what needs to be included in a standard North Carolina offer to purchase and contract. We're going to dive into some addendums, and we're actually going to. Oh, whoops. Give me 1 second. Somebody logged out of my Canopy. We're actually going to write an offer on a property. Okay. Just give me 1 second to sign back in. Sorry, guys. Bear with me. Claudia, if you'll put your email address and sign in on the sign-in sheet, please, so I can shoot all of this information over to you. Okay. Login. Here we go. That should be it. All right, 2 seconds. Okay, perfect. All right, so we got Canopy pulled up, and we're going to go through how we're going to write an offer to purchase a contract. So first and foremost, can everybody see the screen? We're good? Those of you that are in Zoom, if you want all of these forms, these are just the generic forms. I'm going to start listing off, and we are going to start right off the bat with a North Carolina residential property disclosure, better known as a RPD. Okay, this is a 4-page document. And who can tell me who fills out this document? Say it loud. Seller. Okay, so the seller fills out this document. Do you as a real estate agent fill out this document? Never, right? Okay, you guys, the only thing you're going to put on here is the address right here. That's where the owners sign. This is the only form, and don't ask me why, in the state of North Carolina, where the owner's initials, the owner's signatures are right on the front page, not on the last page. Buyer's signatures are on the front page, not on the last page. And then if you look down to the bottom of the second page where their initials are on either side, this is something that's changed recently. It used to be owner on one side and the other, and buyer on one side and the other. Is very confusing, still pretty confusing. We talked about this a little bit in the listing presentation class. And so as you go down this, we're just going to start up. What year was the dwelling constructed? Okay. You guys may run into questions or comments around, okay, well, it started to be built in this year and it's not going to be finished till February of next year. It was built next year. Okay. And for a new home construction, you may have a home that was built in 1942 and somebody decided to put an addition on in the late 90s. Okay. That's what the permits are for. The original construction is still 1942. Okay. Now, something to be mindful, and the reason why do they ask us this question about year built? You guys know why? Lead-based paint that's one thing. What else?
It's a huge factor in what you have to look for in a house.
Okay, so why don't they just say, was it built before 78 or not then?
Because I think age has a lot to do with all of the issues you may find out, and you start ripping out some of those walls and you may be responsible for what's behind them, and there can be asbestos behind them.
Yeah, so asbestos and lead-based paint are the two big ones, right? Yet this is really because code changes basically on a yearly basis. Okay, so yes, lead-based paint, asbestos, the two major ones, yet that's a CFGI outlet right there. What year did CFGI outlets become mandatory inside bathrooms and kitchens? And do you know that's different from the year that it became mandatory inside of garages? So these are all things that we know when a home inspector is going to go look at the property. Was it code at time of year built? Now, when you get into things like additions and stuff like that, I don't want to get too far down a bunny trail here. It needs to be code as to the time of the addition. So if it was built in 42, that's fine if they don't have CFGI. Yet the addition that was put on in 97, 98 does need to have, for that in-law apartment you put in with a bathroom and a kitchen, does need to have CFGI. Okay. So that's really the main thing as to why it's important for the year. And that's why it says right there, explain if necessary. Those are for your additions, and your additions all better be permitted. If you do not have a permit, again, North Carolina, it's as is property. So if it's not, if Lindsay still wants to buy it from me, she can still buy it from me. Yet as a result, she goes to sell it, she could have an issue with that. So if there's no permits, what do we have to do? Anybody know? Disclose that there's no permits, or have the seller go and buy back permits. Okay. You can go and get back permits. They're typically a little bit more expensive. They have an inspector come out, and if you get an inspector on a bad day, he can make you rip everything out. So what do we need a permit for? Nope, not everything. What safety, but what specifically? So if we're doing something structurally, we need to have a permit for that, right? If we're doing something electrical, plumbing, you need to have permits for those things. What don't you need to have a permit for? Cosmetic repairs, okay? So painting, you don't need to get a permit to paint, right? Or nope, yeah, we're not going to go down to HOAs and into that world. There's certain requirements for HOAs, like a certain type of shingle that needs to be on a roof, or a certain color. This is why when you get into new home construction, the elevation or the front look of the house is not always the same. That's different. We're just going to stick to the basic facts of selling a property. So let's say, for example, you kick a hole in the wall and you need to replace the drywall. Do you need a permit for that? No. Okay. So the cosmetic repairs, you want to put a new kitchen countertop in, you don't need a permit for those things. If you mess with the plumbing, then you do. Okay.
So what happens if your cosmetic is over 30,000? Do you have to have your own contract and permits and all that, or can you just do it?
That's going to be a county by county scenario. But typically when you're doing something like that, you're moving something. So if you wanted to move that electrical plug over, technically you need a permit for that. Do they do it all the time? Sure. And not get a permit? I put a jacuzzi out back of my house. And one of the things I had to get a permit for was because we needed to get a special permission because they had to run it off. So if you're looking at the back of my house, there's an electrical outlet on this side on the right, or if you're facing the back on the right-hand side, and the jacuzzi was going on the left-hand corner. They were going to have to run the electrical all the way around the front of the house because it couldn't go across the back because it was going under a door jamb. However, we got special permission to go ahead and do that because it was stupid to do it the other way. And I wasn't going to run wires up and around and over one doorway. So it's all case by case scenario. Okay, so all of these questions on here, question 2 jumps into foundation, right? Okay, now these are things that you may not necessarily know if there's an issue with the foundation. Okay, so a couple of things as indicators, just as real estate agents, for you guys to be aware of and mindful of when you're looking at a property. If you've got brick or cinder block, okay, and you've got cracks that, if you guys look at the bricks out back here, right? Why are bricks designed the way they are? Why isn't it just one solid stone slab? Number one, if it's one piece of stone, that'd be really expensive. Number two, why can't you just make one massive brick? Because it's always going to crack over time. Okay, that's what mason work does. It cracks. So you have these brick designs, or if you guys look at your driveway, you've got like a driveway pad that has a basically like a crack down the middle. That's so the cracks fall into those. That's why it's designed that way. If you're ever looking at a brick and the crack is going through the brick, that could mean structural, doesn't necessarily. If you ever see it going through a cinder block, same exact thing. Could be structural, doesn't mean get an expert to take a look at it. Now, somebody's not going to know, average Joe Schmo is not going to know, right? So as a result, if people are questioning things, there is a no representation on here. We want this form when we're working with our buyers and our sellers. We want this form to be no's. We want, there's no issue, there's no damage, there's no problem. That's what we're looking for. We want no's on here, okay? However, if we do see one of these where it's got no representation all the way down the side, you may see that a lot of people do that on some of their investment properties. Newsflash for real estate agents. Who has investment properties in here? Okay. We are not allowed as real estate agents to go ahead and put no representation on our residential property disclosure, even for our investment properties. We are not allowed to because we're bound by the North Carolina Real Estate Commission. However, you got Joe Schmo over here who doesn't have a real estate license. By all means, if they want to put no representation, they can. Okay. Then we talk about exteriors. You may have a combination here. Something to be on the lookout for. Stucco, okay? There's hard stucco, there's soft stucco, there's synthetic stucco, okay? You guys will see a lot of this on the lake, okay? Understand, there is a synthetic stucco disclosure, okay? If there is stucco on the property, you guys want to go ahead and make sure that it's not a synthetic stucco. If it is, you've got a disclosure, okay? Any questions on that? Usually get questions on that. Okay, the roof covering, right? So if you guys look at this roof behind us, that's what's called an architectural shingle, okay? You can tell a couple of different ways. Number one, it's not, well, no, that's architectural as well. It doesn't look like a brick pattern, right? It kind of looks like it's tapped on top of one another, okay? And as you can see, it's got a ridge vent running across the top, okay? Basically what they do is they take the peak of the house, they cut it off on 1 to 2 inches on either side, and they put this vent on top of it so the whole roof can breathe, okay? In older homes, you see those like Actually, this has one right here that above the custom exterior signs. That's a dormer that breathes out, not a dormer, excuse me. It's a vent that allows the attic to breathe, okay? And the soffit goes right over the top of it. That's why it's designed that way. Those architectural shingles, you always want to check. However, typically you're looking at a 25 to 35-year roof with those. If you see the ones that literally look like a brick pattern, those are about a 15-year roof. Tin roofs, as long as they're not rusted, they could last 50 years, okay? Same thing with any tile roofs as well. So just be mindful of those things. If you've got like a Spanish look on a house where they've got those orange tiles up top, those can last for about 50 years as well. Understand that they come in all different kinds of patterns, shapes, sizes. I've got a house right now down in South Park that has slate shingles. So it's a stone slate. It's a high-end property. But even that, we've had to replace some over the years. All right. So what year was the covering installed? Leakage or any other problems that are going on. If there was a leak and there was a repair, you need to indicate that, right? We're going to start moving a little quicker here so we don't get stuck on this forever. Problem, malfunction, defect with electrical system, any defects with the plumbing systems. Talk about plumbing for 2 seconds. One thing that you guys want to take into mind is polybutylene piping, okay? They stopped polybutylene piping in 1997, I believe. It was the largest lawsuit in American history of $980 million. If you have polybutylene piping inside the property, this is the problem with it. It's a plastic piping that has plastic fittings. The replacement was to take out the plastic fittings, put in the brass fittings, okay? That is the cure for it. However, both the pipe and the fittings break down. So to do it efficiently and effectively, you technically have to rip out all of the piping throughout the house. It can be very expensive. PEX is okay. That is what came into place, I believe, 1998. That took over for that. So just understand, if there is polybutylene piping inside the property, you need to kind of stop, talk with your client, explain the ins and outs of it. I think I shared the story about the guy who called me at 2:30 in the morning about polybutylene piping because he'd been researching it for 8 hours. True story, okay? Don't pick up your phone at 2:30 in the morning when your client calls. Yeah, just something to be mindful of and something you guys need to know. All right, as we're moving on, it's going to get into the furnace. It's going to get into HVAC. Is it a heat pump unit? Is it 2 separate units? These are all things that you want to know, as well as the age of the units, okay? Any appliances, is just rule of thumb. Any appliances you guys have in the house, a 1 to 2 year is their shelf life. Now, do you guys have a dishwasher in your house that's lasted you longer than 2 years? Yes, you do. However, that's what the standard warranties are. That's the shelf life. HVAC units, typically 10 to 12 years. You'll never get a warranty, probably beyond 7. Furnaces, they can go anywhere up to 20, even 30 years. Of course, if you guys maintain these things, they can all work a lot longer. But again, you'll never get a warranty over 7 years with those things. So just be mindful, because when you do a home inspection on the property, the home inspector is going to say it is not satisfactory due to age. Doesn't mean it's still not working okay. It just means they're not going to put their stamp of approval on it. Make sense? Okay. All right. So septic systems, sewer systems, wells. Sometimes Mint Hill has community wells where there's 5 or 6 wells, or sometimes only 1 or 2, and multiple homes feed off of those. Okay. There's a well water test. The closest place we have is Rock Hill, South Carolina. It's through the EPA, but it's a different group. I'm not remembering it off the top of my head. They will have a well test back to you in about 72 hours. If the well test does come back negative, there are some things that you can do, chalking a well, so on and so forth. If there is septic or well and your client wants to go ahead and hook up to street and sewer, they can do that depending upon where they are, okay? Sometimes you'll see, I was looking at buying, 32 acres of land down in McConnell, South Carolina. It's very cheap. I was looking at buying this land less than $200,000. Why was it so cheap? Because you had to pipe in your own gas, sewer, and water, and it was going to be about 20 grand for each, just because of where the closest hookup was. So just be mindful of some of those things. I know I'm getting down on a tangent here. So let's continue to move down the list here. Okay. Page 3. Infestation. Okay. So anything that we have 4 bugs that are mainly recognized as wood destroying insects in the Carolinas. Okay. I think there's over 2,000, but that's why it's called the WDIR, a wood destroying insect report. Lindsay, we were talking about this morning with your inspection, right? Some inspection companies will throw it in and include it for free. Some charge anywhere from $75 to $175 to do these, all right? Now, the 4 main bugs that you want to watch out for are carpenter ants, carpenter bees, powder puff beetles, and termites. Those are the 4 big ones we have here in the Carolinas, okay?
So on VA loans, right?
Yep.
The seller pays for that.
It is required on a VA loan that the seller pay for the WDIR. The buyer does not. Typically, it's a buyer on every other loan.
So who orders it? The seller or?
The seller will order it typically and give the result. Yeah, because whoever pays for it gets to choose. Yeah. Of course, it does have to be approved by the lender, but typically they all are. I've never run into one that's not. Okay. Structural, we've already touched upon that a little bit. Hazardous or toxic substances or materials. Okay. Need to be careful when, I know you guys we're not doing commercial, so to speak, yet if you're in a commercial area. Okay. So for example, a perfect situation is a Riverwalk community that is down, it's Fort Mill, Rock Hill. It's right that divides those. I know it's South Carolina. I know it's a different state, but it's the best example I've got, okay? It was an old textile factory. There's actually a restaurant there called the Pump House. The Pump House was literally a pump house that would pump up 30,000 gallons of water on an hourly basis or whatever it was, the textile factory. Well, when they demolished it, because of the chemicals that they used, they had to be careful and they had to go back in and remove a giant section because the chemicals were still in the ground. So that would be a situation where you need to know about any hazardous or toxic chemicals. Riverwalk's clean now, so it doesn't have any of those things. See some fish with 3 eyes, whatever it is, what it is. Kidding. Guys, nobody watches The Simpsons here? All right. All right. Moving on. All right. Flood hazard. Yeah, you guys might see some of this stuff. Not so much on the lake. You see this more in like beach communities. The lake actually typically drops right around this time of year. It usually drops anywhere up to 3 to 4 feet in some areas. Usually you notice that in the little coves. One thing that does kind of play in there is radon. So who can tell me what radon is? Odorless, colorless gas that what? Can't see, can't smell, right? Where's it emitted from? It's from bedrock, right? So it's coming out of bedrock. So we see a lot of this typically around the lake, okay? Just because of all the erosion and everything. So, but you can be found, there's pockets in a lot of different areas, and it can also have an artificial where Piedmont Row, which is right in South Park, they had a lot of high radon levels there. How do we fix radon?
Mitigate it with some $2,000 thingamajig.
Mitigate it with some $2,000 thingamajig. You're not wrong. It is through mitigation. However, the $2,000, $4,000, $8,000, $20,000 thingamajig is going to be based off of the area and the square footage. So typically what usually ends up happening is the radon comes up through whatever.
Isn't it uranium?
And
I think it's uranium. It's found in the mountains a lot.
it is, yeah. It's uranium. I don't think uranium is the only source of it, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
But it does, in here, it would gather in here. And so the best way is to, like a mitigation system, you see those like little air conditioning things that are like up high. That's what they do. It pulls it out, shoots the air out, recirculates fresh air in. That's the best way to deal with that. Does anybody know the level that we want to watch out for on radon? 4.0. Yep. And so, and Lindsay and I were talking about this earlier. You can go to Lowe's and get like a little charcoal baggy thing, and you open it up and you leave it in the property, and that will indicate if there is radon inside the property or not. One of the companies, one of Gallup Home Concepts, who's one of our partners, home inspectors, they actually bring a system, put it inside the house, and it gives a reading every 15 minutes. Okay, and they do it for 72 hours, so you can see where the spikes are, the ups and downs. Now, this is the problem or the opportunity that we have, and this is how you guys cheat, but you don't cheat. Okay, put it next to the window and leave the window wide open. You're not going to get accurate readings. Okay, so just be mindful of that. Mitigation, depending upon the size of it, yes, it can be expensive. I think 2,000 is the minimum.
In Illinois, it was 2,000.
Yeah, I think that's probably about the minimum of what I've seen, but every job is going to be different. So just be aware. It's great when it's in a property that's not occupied, because then there's no in and out. Yet you do kind of want some natural flow traffic, because that's what people are going to be doing anyways, right? So just something to be mindful of, and just so you guys know the ins and outs of it. Okay, this is where we get into homeowners associations. If there are any special assessments coming. So let's say you guys all live in a townhouse community, okay? And they were built in 1997, so it's time for new roof. And so because you're on the end, you're in the middle end, okay? And Chelsea says, well, my roof is on the north end. It's not as bad as the south end, so my roof doesn't need to be no, sorry. The whole thing gets done. And you get a special assessment of $1,600, $1,600, $1,600, $1,600, $1,600. Doesn't matter that the two end units are actually bigger and have more square footage. That's typically what they do. They divide it up evenly amongst the number of people that are there. Of course, every HOA is different. They can do all of their whatever they want. Other special assessments may be a county special assessment. We talked about this in the listing paperwork the other day, right? So a county special assessment, we talked about the Monroe bypass going in, right? Which that affected the Bonterra neighborhood because people bought into that neighborhood with those pastures for the horses, and now 4 to 5 acres of those pastures are gone. So they're not there anymore. It is what it is. So it's always going to be county, town, then HOA, homeowners association, in that order. Okay. Questions on that? This dives into what is included in your HOA. Again, they may not know, they may know. Some HOAs, Piper Glen neighborhood, for example, they provide cable and internet. It's also $650 a month for the HOA, yet they provide some of those things. All right, so just make sure everybody in Zoom is doing okay. All right.
So my circumstance, like if there was a special assessment and your seller paid for it in full, would you still mention that?
Yes. So the question is, if there was a special assessment and the seller already paid for it in full, I would just include that, and I would actually put it right in the not the agent remarks, in the public remarks, so that people actually see that and know that. Maybe a copy of the invoice, something like that. If there is a special assessment that has been proposed, I would not necessarily make my seller pay for it. If there was one that was already approved that hadn't gone through yet, I would just have the seller just pay the HOA to be done with it. It's going to make your property look more attractive.
That was kind of my question. Do the sellers they don't have to pay for it?
No, everything is negotiable in real estate. So they don't have to, yet if I was the buyer's agent and Sandy was refusing to have her sellers refused to pay the assessment, I'd say, okay, great. Just so you know, we're going to make our offer $1,600 lower because that we want to take care of that. We're going to have to take care of that assessment, right? All right. All right. So MOG, mineral oil and gas rights. You guys love this form, don't you? Okay. So I'm going to tell you what we want to see on here. Again, we went over this in the listing class. We want to see a no representation, no, no representation, no. That's what we're looking for, okay, as a buyer side and well, either side, really. The first question is the minerals, okay? Was the mineral rights severed by the person that previously owned the property? I don't know. I'm never going to recommend a seller to represent that person on that whatsoever. Okay. Did the seller ever sever the mineral rights? Most likely the answer is no. And do they plan to sever the mineral rights before closing? The answer should be no. Same thing with oil and gas. All right. You guys all know the story of how D.R. Horton screwed a bunch of people out of this. And they actually lost a class action lawsuit because of it. And all of the mineral oil and gas rights were reverted back to the people that lived there. So, all right. So those we already know. Oops. Any questions on that? Let me check in with you guys on Zoom. Any questions? No. Let me stop share for a second. Just see if you guys on Zoom do have questions or comments, just go ahead and speak up because I can't see the comments and share with you at the same time. Okay. All right. So let's go back. So this is the agreement to amend the contract. Okay. This 2-page document right here. This is where we run into a lot of situations where, by example, let's say, you know what, I'm going to skip down to the due diligence repair request first. Let me do that one first because that one's going to play right into this one. Okay. Here it is. Okay, so this is the due diligence repair request agreement. All right. And so this is saying the buyer and the seller, right, have entered into offer of purchase and contract, which we're going to get to in a minute. Okay. And so these are the things that were noted. Now, whenever you guys are going to send over a due diligence repair request, you're going to send the inspection report with it, okay? Make sure you get permission, as you do not have the right to send the inspection report. Only the person that paid for it did. So the buyer, I always just get something in writing. I'm going to go ahead and share this over. Please confirm receipt, so on and so forth, okay? As a result, we're going to go ahead and you just take the inspection report. Easiest thing to do is bullet point down. Section 1. A and C, we'd like to have those repaired. Section 2, B would like to be repaired. Section F, A and C, whatever it may be, right? And so on and so forth. Now, this is what I'm going to tell you guys to be smart and savvy real estate agents. When you walk in and you can see something with the naked eye that is wrong with the property, you make your offer based upon that, okay? Do not come in and see that the door is off the hinge and broken and we need a new door and then ask for a new door in the repair request, okay? And obviously you probably wouldn't have a house that had a door off, but you guys get what I'm saying, right? When we can see damage to the property, we're not going to go ahead and assume that that's going to be included in the repair request. It's the things we can't see, okay? Now, I'm not going to ask you guys to go in crawl spaces. I'm not going to ask you guys to go in the attic. I've done both of those things in different situations. Sure, absolutely. However, this is where you're going to go ahead and put in everything that you want to have repaired to the property. Now, as you can see, there's the release of the inspection report. And again, the buyer has to initial off on this. Okay. And then they sign it and that's it. Simple 1-page document. Now, Becca, I'm going to pick on you. I go ahead and I send Rebecca a due diligence repair request. And I say, okay, we want all of these things fixed. And she said, listen, PJ, you got a lot of little stuff on here. This is what we're going to do. We're going to give you cash in lieu of repairs. Okay? What form does she need to use for that? Hint, hint. Agreement to amend. So what you would do is you would archive the due diligence repair request form and you would switch to the agreement to amend because this is where you can exchange money. All right? You cannot write on there, on the due diligence repair request, $2,000 in lieu of repairs. Nope, you've got to switch to this form. Okay? Agreement to amend. It is form 4-T. Okay. All right, so as you can see on here, we've got a couple of different things that we can change, right, Rebecca? So what I'm going to do is I always want to put the ball in the other person's court. So if she says we're going to do cash in lieu of repairs, right? She would say to me, how would the buyers like that money? because can she give me cash? No, that's called mortgage fraud. Nope, it's not okay. No way can cash ever be passed from a seller to a buyer. Okay, never. So what is she going to say? She's going to ask me, well, how do you want that? $2,000 we've agreed upon, right? Well, do I want it off the purchase price? That's the first box right there. So we're under contract for $398. Now we're under contract for $396. You make the change right there, as you can see, the dollar amount from and to. Second, now additional earnest money is if we were going to, let's say we got to a certain date, or we said, hey, you know what, Rebecca, there's this structural issue that's going on, so I'm going to put this up for earnest money right now. And once we get that inspected, which should be by the 15th, then we'll go ahead and put additional earnest money into play. You can actually do that on the offer to purchase from the get-go if you recognize it. Or if we want to go ahead and extend the closing, let's say anything beyond the automatic 14 days, we would throw additional earnest money in. So building deposit, okay. So if there was, again, for any reason, something was going to change with, we typically use due diligence and earnest money, building deposits another way, okay? More on the commercial side of things. And there's actually a different commercial form for this altogether. Due diligence, if we wanted to change the due diligence fee. So for example, we have a due diligence window through the 15th. I want to go ahead and extend it to the 30th. I'm going to put additional due diligence money down in order to do that. And you can see right below, I can go ahead and change the period as well. Okay, period of time. Okay, the boxes, you can check as many of these as you want. Let's go back to the reduction. What if I want closing costs, right? I can go ahead and get closing costs put in instead. I can change, and that's right here as expenses, right? We could change the escrow agent. We could change the settlement date. I'm going to come back to the settlement date in a second. What happens if I really need those repairs done? And I know $2,000 is going to cover it. Yet my guys, you can't just take it off the purchase price because they don't have cash. And they got a little kid and they need to have some of those repairs done. So what can Rebecca do?
Repair them.
She can repair them, but they're not going to do the repairs.
Okay.
What else could she do? She can take the $2,000, give it to the escrow agent, typically your attorney, to hold that money until the repairs are completed. This way, as the buyer, my guys can go out, choose which company they want to repair it, so on and so forth. As a result, that person then gets paid by the escrow agent. This is the thing. It has to be the exact amount that the escrow agent is holding, because if it's only $1,800 and there's $200 left, the escrow agent and an attorney will never break this law, give it to the buyer. Will not do that, okay? Because again, it's the same as passing cash across the table, so you can't do that. Let's talk about settlement date for a second. Now, Becca Mangini was in here the other day and we're doing listing class. We talked about this. When you go ahead and change a settlement date, how many days do you have for an automatic extension in the state of North Carolina? 14, right? Now, what happens when you change a settlement date? We're going to close on the 15th, and I tell her, hey, we're going to need another week, Rebecca, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and move the closing to the 22nd. You good with that? She's good with that. I go ahead, I check this settlement date box, I put the exact date on there that I'm changing it to, and I send it over to her just like that. Now, what does that do to your automatic 14-day extension? Extends it 14 days past the new date of the 22nd. Now look down here. See this little box underneath here? Now this is what, as Rebecca representing the sellers, is going to want checked. As a buyer, I don't care. I want as much time as possible, right? She's going to want that box checked. And if you read it, right, notwithstanding any to the contrary delay of settlement closing paragraph in the contract, if delaying party fails to complete settlement closing within 4 days. So would it be wise for me if I was going to be closing on the 15th and now I've got to push it back a week to not even do this form and just exercise my automatic 14-day extension? Because if I move it 7 days and she checks that box, now I've only got 11 days. So now I'm hurting my buyer, right? Simple math, right? So guys, make sure you guys are reading this. And if you're in the seller's chair, I'm not accepting that without that little box checked, right?
So is there nothing additional days and it just locks in on the day and that's it? Or is this the most?
Time is always of the essence.
Right.
So every contract, it's in there.
Right.
So whatever the closing date is, you can actually close before.
Okay.
So it's on or prior to. So like if we're closing on the 15th and today's the 1st, right? And we've got everything buttoned up and agreed to on the 2nd. And like, hey, would the sellers mind if we close a little bit early? If they don't have, if they're already out of the property and they don't care, buyers can go ahead and close on it on the 10th or the 8th or what have you, right? Now you got to check with the lawyer and the attorney and make all that work. Now, what happens if we know the deal is going to go through yet and they're out of the property, but they can't close until the 15th for tax purposes, whatever reason it may be, right? What would we do if we want to get the buyers in there sooner because their lease is up at their apartment? Yep. Buyer possession before closing, right? That's another form we could go ahead and exercise here where, and a lot of times the buyer possession before closing is no real money exchange. Now everything is negotiable. They can say, listen, Genesis, you want to move your guys in 2 weeks early? It's going to be $500. Okay. It is what it is. Take it or leave it. Okay. So on and so forth. A lot of times they don't really hit them that hard. Whenever there is a buyer possession or seller possession is where we actually see a lot of money exchange. Hey, we'll go under contract, but sellers are going to stay for an extra month. Buyers don't care because they're not moving down here till January anyways. Fine. However, if somebody is doing a possession of any type, there is a dollar amount attached to a day rate. So for example, if her sellers stay an extra month, and we agreed upon that in the contract, so there was no money exchange, I still need to go ahead and put in, if it's beyond the 30-day window, whatever it is, right? It will be a charge of $25 a day, something like that. I don't make anything astronomical or over the top because let's face it, life happens, right? So, all right. Now, let's talk about terminating a contract. Okay, we haven't even gotten to the contract yet. We're terminating already. Okay. So this one is notice to the buyer that the seller is, notice that the buyer is exercising their unilateral right to terminate the offer, purchase, and contract form, the OTP. When do we use this termination? There's 3 terminations. When do we use this guy? It's a period of time. It's a window of time.
Before they accept the offer? During the
No, because if they haven't accepted the offer, we're not under contract.
During the diligence?
During due diligence, start of the day, right there, okay? So buyers exercising the unilateral right to terminate is inside the due diligence window, okay? Does that mean they get their due diligence money back? Yeah, they can ask for it. Are they probably going to get it back?
If it's like a bridge from the seller?
Huh?
If there's like a bridge from the seller, maybe?
Possibly. I mean, there could be 1,000 different scenarios where it comes up, yet typically the due diligence money is gone. And that's kind of how we want to talk to our buyers about it anyways, all right? Because we don't want them to think that they're going to go ahead and get that money back, okay? If you're doing a short sale foreclosed property, there is no due diligence, okay? Just FYI. Yet this is going to be extra, even if there is no due diligence money, this is what has to be done inside the due diligence window for someone to terminate, okay? And why does the buyer have to terminate? What's the justifying behind their reason?
They can't agree on repairs.
Huh?
They can't agree on repairs. And then
Maybe it's they can't agree on repairs, but does the buyer require to have any reasoning behind why they?
no.
You know what? It rained today. I'm not buying a house. That's it. Okay. Buyer can terminate for whatever reason they want. Hey, remember, emotions run high here. Okay. Release of earnest money deposit by seller. Okay. So as you see right here, this is allowing the seller to give back that earnest money. If we can't agree upon repairs, Genesis, give me a money back. Come on, there's $4,000 in there, right? Now, if I wait till the day before closing, Rebecca, I'm going to terminate now on you. Give me that earnest money back. She's probably going to tell me go take a hike, right? Okay. All right, so we went over the due diligence form. Oops. All right, FHA VA financing addendum. Okay, what is this? What's an FHA loan? Fair Housing Administration. Okay, who is it for? Say it louder. It's for everyone, as long as you qualify. Okay, is it lower interest rates? No, typically it's higher interest rates. But well, not necessarily. The main focus of a Fair Housing Administration is usually a lower down payment amount. Okay, so rule of thumb, fair housing is 96.5% LTV. What's LTV mean? Loan to value, right? So that means if it's 96.5 LTV, how much does the buyer have to put down? 3.5%, right? 3.5. Take 100 minus 96.5. Yeah, okay, we'll get it later. All right, so 3.5% is what the down payment amount is going to be. Now, if you've got somebody and there's credit score requirements for this, what is the credit score requirement for this? Huh? 400?
I said
Breathing?
I don't know.
580?
Didn't they come up?
That's
with
the
the
last thing
code
I
as
saw.
well?
580 was the last thing.
Didn't it get like harder?
Depends on the lender.
Yeah.
That's it, plain and simple. I've seen them go as low as 520. I know Bank of America did 520 on an FHA. Some private lenders like Movement Mortgage was at 600. Don't quote me on these numbers, okay? Yet each lender is going to be different. It's important for you guys to know that, because who do you have a fiduciary duty and responsibility to? The client. That's it. Nobody else. I don't care about the lender. They're a dime a dozen. Sorry, lenders. Okay? I don't. I'm there to make sure that Chelsea gets into her property, her home, right? So if I'm just using Movement as an example, they go down to 600 and Bank of America goes down to 520, and Chelsea, no offense, she's at a 580, I'm going to go to Bank of America. Yet lenders are not going to let you guys know that. What they're going to say is, Genesis, I'm sorry, they can't qualify for the loan. With me. They're not going to say the with me part, though. So, guys, always keep a backup lender in your pocket. Lenders hate me because what I do is I'll say, Sandy, you want to get a loan? Well, here's Genesis with 1, 2, 3 loans. Deanna with ABC loans. I've got Chelsea with XYZ loans. Go ahead and interview each and every one of them. If they're going to pull your credit score, right? Because that's what lenders are going to do. They're going to pull your credit score. There's a 30-day window, okay? Sandy's credit can be pulled 12 times in a 30-day window or 2 times in a 30-day window. It doesn't matter. When she exceeds 31 days, one of her credit's going to get hit twice, because the federal government knows that you're going to shop loans. So, guys, do a little bit extra work. Be a rock star real estate agent and make sure that you have somebody at every, I'll tell you, you guys list off any lender right now, I have somebody there, okay? And when I talk to people about the scenarios that I'm dealing with, some people say, yes, I can do that. No, I can't do that. One of my good friends, he's a loan officer. He understands business is business. I was in the guy's wedding. I was a groomsman in his wedding, okay? And I still shop him against other people. And what he will tell me is he goes, listen, we can't do this one, yet I know Summit Funding can do this one. So here, go over and talk to them. I respect that 10 times more than somebody that just tells me they can't do the one, okay? So I know I got off on a little bit of a bunny trail there, but I'm passionate about it. FHA loans, they're all assumable. Did you guys know that? Okay? On an FHA loan, that means if you lock in your FHA loan right now at 2.75, because interest rates are really good, and 5 years down the road, I'm selling your house. Claudia comes in, she's going to buy the house, and the interest rates are now 5%. If she qualifies with whoever the note holder is, she can assume that FHA loan. Now, let me tell you something else about FHA loans, and this really isn't a lending class, okay? Let me tell you something else. FHA loans, you can't drop the PMI. You used to be able to drop the PMI. Now you can no longer drop the private mortgage insurance. That's going to ride out for the remainder of the loan, so you're going to have to refinance into a conventional to drop the PMI. Again, stuff you guys don't need to know as real estate agents, Stuff you need to know, not stuff you need to be talking to a client about, okay? Also, has you guys ever heard of House Charlotte? Has anybody heard of this? Okay, House Charlotte is a down payment assistance program. Don't quote me on the numbers. It used to be that the household income could not exceed $75,000, okay? It is only used in certain areas. You can't use it in Cornelius, okay? You guys sell in Charlotte as well? You can use House Charlotte in Charlotte, obviously, House Charlotte, right? Okay, now, on an FHA loan at 3%, House Charlotte will give you up to 3% of your down payment amount. So somebody could really legitimately come with a 0.5% to the table to buy as long as they qualify, okay? So know the down payment assistance programs that are out there. Also know that some down payment assistance programs are based off of dollar amounts, not percentages. Also know that if you do get some down payment assistance and you decide to sell within a certain time frame, you could owe that money back, okay? Some of them are as long as 15 years. So just be mindful. All right. Anything else about FHA loans? Questions? Conventional loans. What's down payment on a conventional loan? The minimum.
I know some.
You can put whatever you want down on any loan, but 20% is the magic number that will prevent you from paying PMI, private mortgage insurance. Now, there's some lenders out there that say, no PMI. We have this other thing called hazard insurance. It's the same thing, okay? So yes, 20% down will avoid the PMI, yet you can get a conventional loan for 3 for first-time home buyers, and typically it's 5, okay? And there's some qualifications with those, obviously.
Is that the lowest for everyone?
That is, yes, for a conventional, yes. What defines a first-time home buyer?
You never own a home for the last.
3 years? It's going to depend on the lender. It can be as little as 6 months that you've not had to own a home for 6 months, and you can be identified as a first-time home buyer, even though I bought and sold 7 houses in my life. So if I decide to go and rent somewhere for 6 months, I can then qualify again. So again, check with your lender, okay? VA. Let's talk about VA loans. VA loans are fun, right? Who qualifies for VA? Veterans, right?
Oh, and it's
Spouses and their children. I don't think it goes grandchildren, right? So how much you put down on a VA loan? That's the minimum, 0. You can put down whatever you want again, right? And there's a couple little tips and tricks that you guys need to know. What I would do, there's a designation you guys can go and get. It's called Certified Military Residential Specialist, okay? Get the ins and outs around the VA loans. Knowing that, a couple of things Sandy, I think, already brought up about the wood destroying insect report that has to be paid for by the seller. If your lender is not military residential specialist and they don't know that, you could be in a situation because, let's face it, there's about as many lenders as there are real estate agents out there, and some of them are great, some of them are not so great and don't know what they're doing. Due to lead-based paint in this country, if there is chipping paint on the back deck of a house and you're doing a VA loan, the paint has to be sanded down and repainted, even if it's not lead-based paint, even if the house was built in 2000. And it has to be done by the seller. The buyer is not allowed to say, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it when we move into the house. Has to be done because on FHA loans and VA loans, they have special designated appraisers to those properties. When you get an FHA loan on a property, how long does that appraisal good for?
sale of the house.
Huh?
To the sale of the house.
Nope.
Oh, it sticks around for a long time.
It's the longest one.
Yeah, I forgot how long it was.
Throw some numbers at me. Come on.
6 months.
6 months. Bingo. Winner in the back. Not 10 years.
Okay.
6 months. So an FHA appraisal on a property sits there for 6 months. Meaning, Sandy and I can't come to agreed upon terms. I'm listed for 300. She's the buyer. She has a FHA loan. It appraises to 280. 20 grand apart. It's not going to work. Not going to happen. I'm not coming down that low. I put my house back on the market. Claudia comes over. She's got an FHA loan. What do I need to disclose to her?
The appraisal report.
The appraisal was 280. So if you want to buy the house, it's still 300,000. You have to come with an extra 20 grand to the table. Rebecca comes and she has a conventional loan. What do I have to disclose to her? Nope. I have to tell her that there was an appraisal done in the last 6 months with FHA. It does not affect her, and she can go ahead and get her own conventional appraisal. How long is a conventional appraisal good for? Nope.
6 months.
1 day.
What?
1 day. That's it. It's a snapshot in time of if you don't like the appraisal, you don't like the appraiser, right? Genesis is the worst appraiser I've ever had in my life. She doesn't know what she's doing. I want to have Sandy or have another appraiser go out that's going to be issued. That's fine. 1 day, it's done. VA. Appraisals on VAs. It's a different number. 5 months. There's one other loan that we haven't talked about here. It's a USDA loan, okay? United States Department of Agriculture. Years ago, it was known as a farmer's loan, okay? This is for rural property. How do we identify rural property?
There isn't a Walmart nearby.
There isn't or there's only a Walmart, nothing else, right? Okay, guys, write this down. USDA eligibility. Go ahead and search USDA eligibility. I'll pull it up right here for you guys so you can see it. All right. Who wants to be my guinea pig? I want everybody jump at once now.
607 Harmony Drive.
Say it again.
607 Harmony Drive, Statesville.
07 Harmony Drive. Is that Statesville?
28677.
All right, so we're looking up James's house right now. All right, this address is not, can you guys see this? Okay, this is not located in an eligible area. See the baby puke color? You guys got a question? What's up? Go ahead, ask it. We'll just amend it on the contract. We'll just go ahead and change it. We just put an X through it and check cashier's check, and then have all parties initial next to it. Just to be in compliance. Okay, so you guys see the baby puke color? That's not eligible, okay? So I'm gonna zoom out here a little bit. So sorry, James, if you wanna sell your house, people do not qualify with a USDA loan, okay? The white area is all eligible area, okay? So if you guys wanna go ahead and buy out in Gold Hill, you're fine to use a USDA loan. What is the minimum percentage you gotta put down on a USDA loan? 0, right? It was a farmer's loan, right? Okay, that's what it was originally designed for, okay? Now again, you're still gonna have PMI, things of that nature, so you can go ahead and put your 20% down. The last thing that I'm just gonna touch upon, and this is the, oh crap, I can't get financing for anything, yet I have a lot of assets. Talk to of banks. I know South State Bank does this. A lot of the bigger banks will do portfolio loans, okay? Where they will loan off of property that you own. Maybe you've got a Picasso that's worth $87,000. You guys can laugh about that because I actually have a friend who has a Picasso that's $87,000, and I tell her what a waste of money it was, okay? And then she makes fun of me for having a 65 Mustang. So, you know, it is what it is. Anyways, so this is USDA eligibility map, okay? And you guys can search the entire country with this. All right. FHA, VA financing addendum, or any financing questions that you guys have right now? No. Okay.
PJ, I had one question.
Please. Go ahead.
When you had mentioned earlier about the FHA appraisal, do you need to show that to all future buyers or only future FHA buyers?
So you need to show it is a material fact of the property. So you're going to need to go ahead and share that as a material fact, hands down. Now, what you can do in that situation as a listing agent or as a seller, you could say, I don't want, like in that situation, I wanted to sell for $300. Your appraisal came in at $280. We're not going to make up the $20,000. There's a material fact that it appraised at this value. Doesn't matter what loan Claudia comes at me with. It's still a material fact of the property. Now, I can say I'm not going to accept any FHA loans. As the seller, I have the right to do that. Does that answer your question, Susie?
Yes, thanks.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions?
I do have a question. I don't know if you really went over it, but like you said, those appraisals are good for a certain amount of time. So if that time runs out, is that a material fact still, or?
No, at that point, no. So after the 6-month window, because this is the thing, right? So let me give you a better example. So you go ahead and appraise this house today, September 1st, 2020, okay? And it is $280,000. I decide, you know what? I'm not going to sell because it's not worth it. 2 years later, I go and hire Katrina to put the house on the market. Is the market value changed on that house? Absolutely. So once it's beyond the 6-month window, the 5-month window, depending upon which loan you're talking about, that's it. As far as they're concerned, it's just like the conventional loan that Rebecca had. Next day, it's done.
I want to add something to that.
Please.
VA loans,
Yes.
the appraisal is attached to the buyer, not to the home.
Yes. I'm sorry. The VA loans.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that one right there, you're on a fine line whether it's material fact that follows the buyer, not the home. And
But-
we had one that came in $15,000 difference within 10 days.
Yes.
So-
FHA is not attached to the person; it's attached to the property. But VA is attached to the buyer. And if you guys have questions on VA, I don't even know how many VA loans you've done in your day.
938 were all.
938. So you guys have VA questions? I'll put Katrina's number at the bottom of the screen. No, I'm kidding. Call her late. But yes. I know. All right. Any other questions? Cool. We're going to move on to lead-based paint addendum. Okay. Lead-based paint or hazard addendum. Okay. What's the magic year?
1978.
Before 1978, right? Before. Okay. However, if it's close, there was, Uncle Willie that had like 4 cans hiding out in his basement that he painted in 1982. Okay. Anybody know what lead-based paint looks like? Yeah.
I guess I'm old enough, right?
I do, because I had it in my first house, and literally, and they just painted over it. It's really easy to recognize it with the naked eye when it chips off. Okay, is lead-based paint hazardous to have in the property? No, it is not. When is lead-based paint hazardous?
When it chips and peels.
It-
When you eat it.
Yep, you're right.
Yeah.
It's when you ingest it. Okay, so obviously when it chips off, if a pet were to pick it up, or a child, or and I think they make the joke in pre-licensing, the old people gnawing on the windowsills, right? Okay, so you can have lead-based paint inside your property and it will not harm you whatsoever until it's ingested. Okay, what about asbestos? Because that's a little bit different.
Well, it's fine until you bust open the wall and it's asbestos.
So asbestos, and if you ever see asbestos on a property and they said it's been taken care of, okay, how is it taken care of? That's what I want to know, because asbestos is friable. So it looks like these, and one of the most common things inside is these little square 10-inch tiles, okay? This is what they look like. They look like these, but they're small little 10-inch, and they're the ones that all the kids throw the pencils up into, right? Okay? And, so anyways, when this breaks, this corner breaks off, you got a bunch of these little things flying around in the air, okay? They look like little crazy hooks, okay? And they attach to the back of your throat when you breathe them in, and they cut you open, and they can cause lymphoma and cancer, okay? So as a result, how is the asbestos taken care of? Oh, we just went in there, we banged all of it down, and we just, cleaned it out, left it there. No, it's still floating around in the air, okay? There is a way they actually tent a house typically, and they go ahead and basically remove it properly, suck it out, wash all the walls down, clean the air. It has to be filtered out for 3 days. Costs like $10,000. Not cheap to do. Okay, now what happens if they encapsulate the asbestos? Anybody ever heard that word? It's been encapsulated. What does that mean?
It's sealed up.
It's been sealed. So there is, and don't quote me on this because I've never done this, but there's basically a spray that they put on it to encapsulate it, which prevents it from breaking. And if it breaks, it's not supposed to be as friable and whatever. Okay. Yet it's sealed. Okay. So I don't know. It's like, like Fix-A-Flat, I guess. They just spray that up there, whatever. I don't know.
To schools and government buildings.
What's that?
They were doing it to schools and governmental buildings, and again, all my
I-
knowledge is from Illinois, so.
No, it's the same thing across the country.
That's
So
what we're doing in Illinois to.
it's this. It's the same thing as the polybutylene piping. They fix the fittings, and it's supposed to fix it. Not 100%. So if it's been encapsulated, be careful. All right, just be mindful. Warn your clients. Okay, asbestos shingles are on the exterior of the building, and those look like these flat little plates. Okay, they got these little funky designs to them. And they're stacked one on top of another, just like that. Okay? Now, asbestos shingles are not as hazardous because they're outside. Right. Okay? It's like, my water drinking supply doesn't have any toxins in it, just the one next door. So it's okay. Now, you will see Cramerton, Gastonia, you will find these asbestos shingles out there a lot. Okay? Asbestos was used because it was a cheap alternative to certain things. Ceilings, instead of using drywall, shingles, instead of using wood on the side of the house. So just be mindful of those things, especially when you're showing in more impoverished areas. You're going to see some of these things popping up. Cramerton has a lot of it, just because the age of the homes are all from the 60s. They've got all those mill row townhomes, not townhomes, sorry, mill row homes, okay? So just be mindful that that's what you guys are looking for when you're talking about asbestos, okay? Now, as you guys can see on this lead-based paint addendum, this does not do asbestos, but we just talk about them typically side by side, okay? On this, if there is, the seller is required to check if there is the presence of it is known or the presence is not known, and the buyers have to sign off on it, okay? Now, again, with investors, you may run into, well, I don't know, I just bought the house. Okay, guys, this is where it's your job as a buyer's agent to go ahead and do your own due diligence. All right. Questions?
I have a question.
What's up?
So I know you said that this form is if it's prior to 1978, but what if the home was actually built in 1978? Would you still go ahead and do the form?
So as I said earlier, I don't trust Uncle Willie, who is keeping 4 cans of lead-based paint down in his basement. So if I can identify and know that it's there, or I see something that would jump out at me, then I'm going to go ahead. Now, according to just filling it out from a listing agent, if it's 78 or on, you're not required to have this form in there. Again, if you notice something as a listing agent, that's your fiduciary duty and responsibility to go ahead and identify that, okay? Or as a buyer's agent.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Offer to purchase and contract time, which you guys have all been waiting for. All right. We're going to dig right into this. Okay. So when we're filling this out, let me go to my matrix. All right. So we are just going to take a property at random here. Who's got a listing? Huh?
So you don't want to do
Linz, what's the address on your listing? Three matches. There we go. What happened? Okay. What are you, this one right here, right? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't check that box. There we go. All right, so we're gonna pull up Lindsay's under contract property right here, which she's getting dual agency on, by the way. Congratulations. Not too shabby. All right, so we're gonna go, I'm gonna toggle back and forth between these two. All right, so as we come to this, all right, this should be self-explanatory. So if I'm going too fast for you guys, slow me down. On the line where it says seller, put the seller's name. On the line where it says buyer, put the buyer's name. Legal name. If you guys were at the other two classes, you guys remember my story about Austin. His name was actually Mark Austin. I knew him for 6 years. Never knew Austin was not his first name. Legal name, okay? If it is an investment property, there may be an entity, okay? Saco LLC, okay? That may be the name up there, and then I would identify the managing partner as Sandy Saco, okay? Then, it's really simple. Pedigree information, the street address, okay? Really simple so far, right? Okay? All right, let's dive into the legal description. This is where we're going to toggle back to talk about the legal description. So we are a lot and block state, okay? And what I'm going to tell you guys, this is how I do it. It may be different than how you guys do it. I don't put anything in the lot and block. If you guys have the lot and block identified, go ahead. The more information you can put in here, the better. Subdivision, okay? So let's go and let's look at the subdivision. Selwyn Park, okay? Now, is that actually Selwyn Park? I mean, I know it is because I helped her with it, right? Yet, do you guys know? Because 2 streets away is Madison Park. And then on the other side of Park Road is Myers Park. And it's all part of South Park, but how do we actually know if this is Selwyn Park? So we want to go look in the tax records, because what is on the MLS data sheet is what Lindsay put up there. Now, Lindsay's smart. She did her homework, and so she's done it the right way. Yet are there agents out there that are going to be like, I know that that's in that neighborhood. I have a rental property in Chris Mark subdivision. There is half of the neighborhood that's called the enclaves at Chris Mark, and that is not Chris Mark because those are the higher end properties. My rental's not in the enclaves, okay? So guys, just be mindful that you guys are doing your homework on here. Okay, next thing that you're gonna see is a pin pad. What's a pin pad? Or a PID? Right here. Parcel ID, property identification number, okay? As a result, where am I going to find that? Parcel ID right here. Do I trust Lindsay? No, I don't trust anybody, okay? I know Lindsay did it right, yet this is where you can pull the information from, yet always go double check the tax records, okay, guys? All right, and then you see where this says other description? Now, this is an extra step that I do that not everybody does. So I want you to come over here and you see where it says legal description right here. These are actually the lot and block numbers. I am going to go and check that on the tax records to make sure that Lindsay copied it correctly and put it on the MLS sheet the right way. And I'm going to put that in other description. Description, what is it? Yeah, other description. I'm going to cut and paste and put that whole thing in there, okay? Because I know with all the information I'm giving them, when they go and look it up, they're going to find the property, okay? And that's what this is. This is an indicator for the loan officer and for the attorney to go look up the property.
Will
All
you
right, so
open
let's-
up? Will you
Say it
open up the Will you hit TX and open up the tax records right fast and show where it's at?
Okay, so this is through Realist. So here's the subdivision, which we just talked about, right? Oops, going the wrong way. Legal description, right down here. Parcel ID, right here. And while we're on it, let's just scroll down because the next thing they're going to ask us for is the deed book and reference page. Okay. Now you see this, guys, right here. It says deed/page. Okay. I want you guys to look at this because as you look across, it's different. The deed book and the page changes every time the property exchanges hands. Okay. So that is never the same. Parcel ID is for life. It stays with that property until it's subdivided or it's joined together with another property. Deed book and page change every time. So when Lindsay closes this deal, this number is going to change again. Okay? And the first series of numbers, 31449, is the book that it's located in. The dash separates the book from the page. It's located on page 382. Thank you, James, for bringing that up. Good point. And that goes right here on the contract, deed book and page. All right. Stop me if you got questions because I'm just going to keep rolling. All right. Next thing, price. We all get to do math. Yay, my favorite subject. All right. So the first is the purchase price on the property, okay? Now, Lindsay, are you going to tell us what you're under contract for? Why not? It's confidential, okay? The property is listed at what, 298? Let's say that the property was under contract for 280, okay? It's not, I'm just making up something fictional. And Lindsay changes the price in the MLS to 280 because that's what she's under contract for. And then something happens and the deal falls apart. Liana was looking at this property, right? Looking at it, right? Because he likes it. Sell it apart, that's where you want to be, right? And she says, well, I already know that the seller is willing to accept 280, so I'm not going to put in an offer over 280. Lindsay's relinquished her fiduciary duty and responsibility to her seller client, and as a result has hurt them. Make sense? Because we now know what they are willing to accept for, okay? If, for example, there's a multiple offer situation, it goes the other way and goes over list price. It doesn't mean you can put that number in there either, okay? You are just under contract. The commission is very black and white on this. Questions?
So don't change anything, like the price or anything on MLS, keep
All you-
what the list price is.
You don't ever change the price until it's closed. Never close until it's closed. Don't do it on the morning of the closing because your closing's at 1 o'clock and you want to get that in the MLS so you can get paid right away. No, you wait and do it until it's closed in case any hiccups come up. I've had somebody walk away at the closing table before, believe it or not, because somebody sent a racial slur across the table. Woman said, you can keep my earnest money. I don't need this karma on my soul, and got up and walked out. Very first closing I ever sat in on, it was not my closing, and I was like, what career did I just get into? And literally they walked away. They turned to Thomas, who was my mentor, and said, we'll find another house.
We walked away on closing.
You walked away on closing day? Do you want to elaborate or no? You don't have to.
You know, it's same thing, you know, it just got to the point where, you know, unfortunately in Illinois, y'all show up together at a closing.
Yep, and that's how it used to be here.
Right, and so now you're meeting your sellers and you're the buyers, and just the wrong thing came out of their mouth, and I couldn't handle it, and I don't like it as well.
Yep. This guy made a racial slur. I've also seen it before where it causes problems where it's like, hey, you know what? We really can't afford to come down any lower on our price right now because we're not making any money off this house. We're walking with like $5,000, and then they see the HUD settlement statement where they're walking with $125,000, and that causes some people to get PO'd as well. So just stay in your lane.
Subdividing the land, so we would have had to have been their neighbors.
Ah.
Subdividing their land, and like that would have been my, you know. So this is how the closing was gonna go. Could you imagine trying to get her approval on our building? It
Yep.
just was not gonna work.
Yep. All right. So the agreed upon purchase price or the offer that you're putting in, right? Okay. You guys all know that in our region right now, how's our inventory levels? low, get low, right? I mean, they're ridiculously low. All right. I checked this morning, they're about 5,600 single family condos and townhomes in the Charlotte metro area.
And how many, so is it a month's inventory, month and a half? I don't know.
That is the weekly snapshot of how much inventory was out when they did that.
Right, so how much do we usually sell? So usually, so we used to say we have a month and a half's worth of inventory. You know,
It's
it's
less
how
than
much
that,
do
I
they
think.
sell? It's less than a month's worth of inventory.
So let's take a look at this report right here.
Sorry, this is my next class I want, is how to get your stats and your stuff.
Okay. So right here,
If you live
56, as I just said. So 5,600,
Okay,
28 properties. It's for the week ending August 22nd.
right.
Now, that is an inventory decrease of 47.6% year over year.
Okay.
I started in 2013. You want to know what this number was in 2013? 25,500 on average. So the new listings have increased. So new listing increased from last year 2.7%. And that means 1,286 properties were listed on the market. You were one of them. And pending sales increased. Now look at this.
Oh, okay.
2.7%, but the sales increased 29.9%. 1,355 came off. You're only putting 1,286 on, and that's coming off.
So under a month.
Huh?
Under a month of inventory.
No. Hold on.
Right.
That's different. Let me get there in a second. This is just a snapshot of the week.
Okay.
That's
Oh,
it.
okay, the week.
The month of July does a year over year,
Right.
and it's 1.4 months of inventory right now.
Where did you find that?
When you open up your MLS on this front page right here,
Uh-huh.
weekly market activity report right there, very first tab. Click that guy. Boom, right there.
Okay, I'm lost.
Okay.
Oh, this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but mine looks like a bunch of tiles.
I'll show you afterwards.
Okay,
But you just go to the Canopy agent login.
okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Um,
And that's every price point across everything.
yeah. Well, the Charlotte metro area.
Okay.
Okay, because the Asheville region's below us because we're 17 counties.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's everything from the, $75,000 manufactured home through to that 12 million. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Now, can I make it even more confusing for you?
Yeah.
New home construction
Oh.
does not have to put their numbers in here. Yet they still put their inventory properties in here. And some do and some don't. So
Okay.
just take that with a big old grain of salt.
Okay. Interesting.
Let me flip back over here. Okay, so we're gonna put in our offer price, okay? So Lindsay's property is $298,000. I'm gonna go ahead and I know that Selwyn Park's a popular area, so I'm gonna offer $290, okay? So I put $290 up there, okay? Second line, I'm gonna put in my due diligence fee, okay? My due diligence window should probably be somewhere between about 14 and 21 days, 2 to 3 weeks. How much am I gonna put in for a due diligence fee?
$300.
$300? That may be a little low. I probably do
$1,000.
$1,000. That may be a little high, but okay. But I put in about $500, $600, somewhere around there on a $300,000 property. What am I going to put for the earnest money?
I'm seeing really high due diligence for.
I am. Well, we're going to get there. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. So I'm going to put in $500 due diligence. What am I going to put in earnest money? What is earnest money? How much? 1%, about $3,000. Yep. So, or 290 or 2,900 if I'm putting it in offer at 290. Okay. And Lindsay calls me up and she says, "Hey, PJ, I'm like the most amazing listing agent ever. So I wanted to let you know that I've got 3 other offers on the table." What am I going to do? I'm going to move my offer to $300,000. I'm probably going to move my offer to $300,153. Why am I going to do that?
To be above the.
Because somebody's going to go 300,000, so I'm going to go just above them. It's how I won my very first house, 130. Everybody said, okay, we knew the bidding was going to go to about 140. I went 140, 500. Okay. Just little extra, whatever, get on top. That's just me. Okay. Not necessarily how you guys have to do it. Yet think about your buyers and think about the other people's buyers because they're going to jump in those increments. Okay. All right. So now it's multiple offer situation. Now, Rebecca, what were you saying about due diligence money?
That in the multiple offer situation, I'm seeing a lot higher than.
Yeah. So if I was already prepared to put down about $3,500 on this property, I'm going to go ahead and put $2,000 into due diligence money. And I'm going to go ahead and put $1,500 in earnest money. Now, do I look more attractive to Lindsay and her sellers? Yeah. Right? They don't really care about the earnest money side of things because the due diligence money is what's guaranteed. And if Genesis is putting an offer in at $500 and $2,000, and I'm putting an offer in at $2,000 and $1,500, doesn't even if we're using the same amount of money, it's how we play with that money that's going to make us look more attractive. So when you get into multiple offer situations, you have to explain to your buyers, understand whatever we put in that due diligence pot is gone. Don't get it back, no way, shape, or form. Do you know the definition of somebody getting their due diligence money back in the state of North Carolina? Act of God. I'm not lying. Listen, guys, go read the law. Because I have. Act of God. So no, they're not getting their due diligence money back. Okay. All right. So I've got my offer purchase in.
Sorry.
Somebody got a question?
Can't you get it back through VA loans?
So
UDD.
that's going to be a case by case scenario. But we could talk about that on the side. I'm not going to go down that bunny trail right now, if that's okay. All right. So we've got our purchase price amount or the offer that we're putting in, due diligence and earnest money. Okay. Now, right below that, you see that additional earnest money, the next line down. We talked about this already, right? So for example, I'm going to go to Rebecca and I'm going to say, okay, we're going to go ahead. We're going to put this down for earnest money. Yet once we get past this date, because I have a property that I have to sell in order to buy this one. It could be any scenario. Just once I get past this date, I'm going to go ahead and put another $3,000 into earnest money. Okay, that would be an additional earnest money date. Okay, and then of course, if you're going to change anything with the due diligence, that's what form? Yes, say it loud, proud. Agreement to amend. Okay, all right. Assumption for unpaid principal balance. Okay, so that the seller may have. This could be a variation of a lot of things. If you guys ever go down this path, get a lawyer involved. Okay, you guys have McNaught Clements downstairs. They will draft paperwork for you guys for free and verbiage. Do not draft your own paperwork. Okay, there used to be an addendum called Addendum A. It literally said Addendum A. There's a bunch of blank lines. Okay, you guys are not a lawyer. I don't want the liability. If you're a provisional broker, Rob doesn't want the liability on his license. Go use the attorney. We have an agreement with them. They do it free of charge. Okay? All right. Next, seller financing line. Okay? You guys are typically not going to use a lot of these lines. You're going to use the first three in the bottom line typically. Yeah, let's just talk about what is seller financing. Who can tell me? Seller is the bank.
Lease to own? Yeah.
Yep. No, lease to own's different. I'll talk about that in 1 second. The seller is the bank. You sell me the house, I'm just going to, because you own it outright, as a result, I'm just going to pay her. I'm going to make my mortgage payments to her at whatever interest rate we agree upon. I'm responsible for the taxes. I'm responsible for the insurance. I'm responsible for paying her X amount of dollars a month to make it work. You guys are not really going to dive into this because a lot of people don't want to do seller financing. We see these in family deals. Okay, that's where we see seller financing.
So that's how we can get back at our kids. Okay.
I think you are a real estate agent, my child. Okay. All right. Building deposit. You guys are never going to use this. Why are you never going to use this? Builders all have their own contracts. Okay. And why do they have their own contracts? because they're really long. You guys are way too lazy to read them and don't realize that it says that the builder has 2 years to complete the house. On average. Just be mindful of that. Okay, and then of course, this is where all the math works out at the bottom. This is the top number. You subtract, and then this is the end result of what is going to be either loan amount brought to the table, okay? Or the remaining amount that you could put down, additional deposit, however you want to work it. James mentioned something about a lease purchase, okay? I've done a couple of lease purchases in my day. I can walk you guys through it. If you guys have a lease purchase, there's a whole lot of moving parts. Going to give you a quick example because I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. Did a lease purchase. As a result, the buyer went ahead and put $10,000 cash, non-refundable deposit down on the property. They moved into the property for a period of 2 years. Again, time being of the essence, they could close on this sooner. They would close on it sooner. It was $1,500 a month. I think, I don't remember. I'm just going to make round numbers. As a result of that, $1,500 a month, $500 went to the seller. Oh, all of it went to the seller, but the seller was required to put $1,000 a month into a separate trust account to build towards the money that was coming off, and they got to keep $500 a month. Again, just making up round numbers. As a result, they were able to go ahead and get a loan within about an 18-month window, able to close on the deal. Now, as a result, you guys have to, this is a deal that I did as a dual agent because it's a little tricky. Lindsay, you're selling this property right now, right? And I want to come with a lease offer, a lease purchase, okay? So you're not going to get paid for 2 years. How do you feel about that? Right? So if you're going to do any lease deals, this is how it is. It's paid out by the seller, 50% of your commission up front. Because what happens if my buyers don't come through and end up buying the property? The seller's fine. They got their $10,000 non-refundable. They're good. We're SOL on both of our commissions, right? As a result, I get half, 1.5%. If it's a 3% deal on each side, I get 1.5% up front when the lease purchase goes into effect. I get the other 1.5% when it closes. Again, if you guys get a lease purchase, come and talk to me, please. Okay? All right.
Question.
Yes.
So when I'm amending it from the personal check to the official bank check, how do I do that? Can I just like mark it out?
You can just mark it out. It's called strike through on DocuSign, and then you check the other box, and then you have to put initials for both parties. Yeah, for the seller or 2 sellers, 2 buyers, whatever you got going on. Okay. So who's next thing you have to fill out? Earnest money deposit. This is the definition on earnest money. Okay, it's a really long form. Just be mindful. Read it. Put this next to your bed, guys. Read it every night. I know none of you will. It's fine. I'll be smarter when it comes down to it when we're negotiating a deal because you haven't read this. Escrow agent. Who's an escrow agent? Typically, it's a closing attorney. Can Keller Williams be your escrow agent? Not anymore. No, Keller Williams cannot.
But that's because of Keller Williams. Because right now, it's our escrow money, we match.
So what do you have to do to be an escrow agent? Go back to pre-licensing. Have a trust, non-interest bearing trust account. You can't make money off the people. Okay? We went away from trust accounts so that we don't have the liability. Okay? As a result, it's easier for you guys to have the attorneys that are going to be doing the closing hold the money anyways. So typically we allow the buyer to choose where the escrow money is going to go. You can have Uncle Joe in the mountains, as long as he has a non-interest bearing trust account, hold your escrow money. I don't recommend it. Okay? All right. What's the effect? Yo.
Can I ask you a question about that? So at the time when you're writing this, if your buyer doesn't know what attorney they want to use for closing, can you just suggest like McNaught and Clements to be the escrow agent, but then later if they choose a different closing attorney, can they still do that?
Technically, yes. I don't know why you would enter into an offer without knowing who your attorney is, though. I would have all your ducks in a row. right off the bat, I would say, okay, if we're gonna go ahead, Susie, you're my client, and you're gonna go ahead and make an offer. Have you guys chosen upon an attorney yet? I can provide you one that's in my office. I would not want to open up that can of worms, but legally, yes, you could do that. Okay, effective date. What's the effective date? We need bathroom breaks because people just keep disappearing. What's the effective date?
On the last date that all the parties sign.
Correct. Say it loud.
On the day that the last parties have signed.
All parties are signed. That's the effective date. We officially have a contract. You send me an email that says, we're agreed upon, PJ. Do we have an effective contract? Almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, okay? Can I come back and sue you if you back out of that because I have an email in writing? Sure. I could sue for anything. This is the United States if I'm offended, okay? So I can come at you for whatever, especially if you put something in writing. But if you were to pick up the phone and tell me, hey, we have an agreed upon contract, that's verbal. That's you versus me. He said, she said, that's it. I'm going to ask you for an email, or better yet, I'm going to ask you for the signatures and send it over. It is not official until it's signed by all parties. Okay? Do you have to do it on this offer to purchase and contract form? No, I'm just saying in general.
Oh,
Can we have a contract that is not on this offer to purchase and contract form?
as long as there's a
Well, that's a different contract if you're doing land, right?
property legislation,
It does not have to be on this. We just talked about new home construction having their own contracts, right? You can technically in the state of North Carolina make a contract on a napkin if you want. Okay? This is the preferred method. Just letting you guys know because you're going to get some smart ass like me, I promise. Okay? Due diligence fee, and then we put in the due diligence period, okay? Now, this is where you guys may see we want an exact date in here, okay? Same thing with the settlement date, the day we close. We want an exact date in there as well. However, if you're working with an investor, they may say, hey, Lindsay, go ahead, lowball these guys, 298, throw 200,000 at them, 220, see what they do. Put in the due diligence period for 20 days from effective date, or put in the settlement date 40 days from effective date. You guys may come across that. It's perfectly legal. However, not to confuse you anymore, put exact dates in here. Okay? Why do we not want to do 20 days, 40 days, something like that? Huh? Because you guys can't do math, okay? You guys know 3% of everything because you're real estate agents, yet you do 40 days and it's a Saturday, okay? That's why we want exact dates. I'm having a little bit of fun. I know you guys can do math. Most of you. That's it. Rebecca, I love your honesty. Okay. Special assessments, we've talked about this, okay? Fixtures and exclusions. Let's dive into this section for a little bit. What's a fixture and what's a fixture? Three things.
Attached, bolted, and screwed.
Yep, what was it?
Attached, bolted, or screwed.
So glued, bolted, and screwed, okay? Attached to the property. Is that dishwasher a fixture?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Nope, is a stove a fixture?
Oh, yeah, because.
Yep. Is a refrigerator a fixture?
No.
Why? You can slide that thing up. You can slide that thing right up. Okay, so let's look at the countertop for a second. Typically, a refrigerator comes at the end. Typically, stove is shoved somewhere in the middle where there's a countertop on either side, and dishwasher's encased, right? Because the refrigerator's on the end, there's nothing on the other side of it. That's why it is personal property, is not considered a fixture of the property. You can just slide that thing out, right? Okay, so when we're talking about fixtures, what are the three main appliances that are personal property? We just said one. washer, dryer, refrigerator. Those are the three. So if you want them in your contract, you're going to have to put them in your contract. Okay. Now, Lindsay, if we're going to put personal property in our contract, right? Where is personal property? I'm skipping ahead. Here it is. How do we put personal property in the contract, Linz? Because we just talked about this. The VIN number, okay? Washer, dryer, refrigerator all have a VIN number on them, okay? You guys may think I'm going a little bit over the top with this, okay? Yeah, when Genesis sends me an offer, okay? None of you guys have been to my house. It's probably a good thing. Okay. I have a stainless steel Samsung refrigerator in my kitchen. If you go out into my garage, I have a beat up black old school handle fridge, better known as the beer fridge, in the garage. Okay? Genesis puts in her contract that she wants the refrigerator that was in the property at time of showing. How do I know which one she means? Put the VIN number in there, and then there is no question. And she gets the nice stainless steel Samsung refrigerator instead of the little black beer fridge. Okay? What other personal property could you guys have inside of the property? Furniture? Yeah, sure. What else? Mirrors are fixtures. With the exception, if all mirrors are fixtures. If they're, and I think you're going back to the last class I talked about where I did an antique mirror, but we put that in as an exclusion. What else could be personal property? Also in my garage, I have a stand-up, what's called a coffin freezer. Okay? That is personal property. It does not convey with the home, yet somebody could ask for it, right? My car is personal property. You guys could ask for my car. Okay? I had a house that had a, what was it? I can't remember if it was marble or what it was, or quartz, but it was a giant dining room table that was 2 slabs. And it matched the quartz that was on the countertop in the dining room hutch that was built in. Obviously, that table wasn't going anywhere. It was still considered personal property because it was freestanding. Okay? If there is any personal property that people want, okay? I've seen everything from lawnmowers thrown in here, okay? Guys, does not go in the contract. The only 3 things in your personal property that should be in here are washer, dryer, refrigerator that are never going to raise a red flag with a lender. You put the 1965 Mustang that's in the garage, that's going to raise a flag with the lender. So how do you guys do personal property? Bingo. Separate bill of sale outside of closing for $1. Okay? All right.
I have a question real quick. If a TV is mounted to a wall, would that count as a fixture or personal property?
The mount is the fixture. The TV is your personal property. Unless otherwise specified. Drapes. Personal property or fixture? That was a really heavy sigh.
It's so annoying when they leave their ugly curtains.
The drapes?
The curtains themselves are personal, but the rods.
Bingo. Rods and rails are fixtures. Curtains are personal property, except not when they match the carpet. When?
Oh,
There's one time. Somebody gonna lease some drapes? You must have been using that FHA account payment assistance on that one. Leasing drapes. If you guys have, so in 2 of my houses, I've got 18-foot ceilings. So I've got a big picture window in the back of one of my houses. Those rods and rails stay, as do the drapes, because they're custom designed to that property specifically. Then it's considered a fixture. It's custom, correct. Okay, porch swing. Fixture. A lot of people say it's not because you can unhook it, right? Nope. It's considered a fixture.
Pretty screwed on in there.
Yeah, leave the change just hanging. I hung ferns from there, I swear. Okay. All right. Any items that are leased and not owned, like your drapes. Okay. If you're living with Rebecca. Okay. Sometime you guys have heard of Rent-A-Center or Aaron's, right? What can you rent or lease at Aaron's?
Your whole furniture.
Everything, right? The couch, the big screen TV, the washer, dryer, refrigerator. I'm not including the washer, dryer, refrigerator because I technically don't own them. Okay? So you guys always want to make sure, now this is more on the responsibility of the listing agent and the seller to provide that, because I'm going to assume when I'm buying that house from you, Lindsay, that the washer, dryer, refrigerator, if they're included in the contract or you put them in the listing, I'm going to assume that you own them. Okay? All right. So buyer's due diligence process. Slide through here. Again, you guys are required to read all of this and explain it to your clients. Let's move on to buyer representation. Okay? So, what is this section? First word. Loan. It's how you're going to pay for the property. 97% of people typically will get a loan of some sort. Okay? We've already talked about a lot of loans here, right? FHA. What else? VA. USDA. Conventional, one of the most popular. You can get into portfolio loans, as we talked about. ARM loans are out there. I would not even touch an ARM right now because interest rates are so low. Talk to your favorite lender to have them explain this to you. So the buyer does or does not need to does not intend to obtain a new loan. So they do. So we're going to check does. All right. And then we're going to say what type of loan. Okay. So Linz, I'm going to come at you with a conventional loan. Okay. And if there's a down payment assistance program attached to that, if you were doing an FHA with down payment, you have to check both those boxes. Okay. Fixed amount. Typically, you guys are going to be looking at a 15 or a 30-year fixed. Okay. Adjustable rate is the other option. That's what when I say ARM, that's what an ARM is. Adjustable rate mortgage. You guys don't even want to go there right now. Okay. Not with the interest rates where they are. In the amount of. Okay. Now, you guys can do this two different ways. Lindsay, what's one way you can do this? That's okay. The principal amount of? Correct. Percent LTV is one way we can do this. So on a conventional, then maybe I'm not a first-time home buyer, so I'm getting the 5%, not the 3% that Genesis was telling us about. So principal amount of 95% LTV goes right in here. Or, if it's just to make numbers easy, what's the other way we could do it that you were doing it at first? The amount. So if I'm going to go ahead and get a loan on the property and I'm only going to put 5% down, $100,000 property, that means this would say $95,000, right? Okay. All right. The term of, again, this is where the years are going to play in. So like I said, you guys are typically going to be doing fixed. 15, 20, 30-year fixed. It's typically what you guys are going to see. Okay. Then as a result, not to exceed a rate of, now, if they are locked in at 2.75% interest rate right now, you put that in if it's locked. If it's not locked in, yet you think you're going to get 2.75, I'll always go a little bit above. I'll go 2.875, something like that. Okay. Now, let me ask you guys a question on this section. Is this deal contingent upon this loan? Meaning, if I've got $2,000 in earnest due diligence money and $1,500 in earnest money, and we go under contract and I don't get my loan, can I get my money back?
Not the due diligence, but you'd get the earnest money back.
Correct. A lot of times people think that if they don't qualify for the loan, they're entitled to get their money back. And in the state of South Carolina, they would be correct. You guys are all Rockstar agents. You're going to make sure that your people have a pre-approval before you even get to this step. Okay? You do not need to have a pre-approval, pre-qualification, or anything to put an offer in the state of North Carolina. We don't teach that because it wastes a whole heck of a lot of time for you guys. Don't practice that way. Okay. Any questions? Moving on. Buyer does or does not have to sell another property. This is what replaced the contingency addendum that we used to have in North Carolina. So you're under contract right now. The people that are moving in there, if they had something to sell, they would check does right here, and then you would give in some information about the property address. Why is this important to know? This deal could affect that deal from happening. It's not going to protect that due diligence money, yet it could protect the earnest money further down the road even after the due diligence period. Okay? It does not always, and I can give you 1,000 different scenarios why it wouldn't work out. Yet, as a listing agent, Lindsay wants to go look up my property at 123 Main Street and see, wait a second, you said it's contingent upon this property selling? Yes, it is. That property's not on the market yet. I know it's not. Do you want to accept my offer now in a multiple offer situation? I haven't even put my house on the market. Absolutely not. Yet if she can go look up my property and see that it's on the market, and she's a savvy real estate agent, she's probably going to do a quick CMA on it and see if it's priced right. Because if I've been sitting on the market for 3 months and I'm not moving, she's probably not going to want to accept my offer either. Yet if she can go on and she can see that I'm already under contract and I tell her that I'm scheduled to close in the next 2 weeks, that's probably going to be okay with her. Now, stuff could still fall apart if I say I'm under contract and I'm already past our due diligence period and we're ready to go, right? I'm just going to kind of take my word on that because I can't give her any information on the deal that we're doing, right? That's why you get everything in an email. Okay? All right. So, and that's that next paragraph right there we just went over, is under contract, is not under contract. Okay? All right, this is what we talked about already, the RPD and the MOG, okay? This is they have received them, have not received them. Where would I find them? I don't know where I'm supposed to get this stuff. Attachments. So you go right over here, you click on the attachments, and because Lindsay's a Rockstar Keller Williams agent, she has got, there's an encroachment on there, lead-based paint addendum, mineral oil and gas rights, and then the RPD sitting right there. So good job, Linz. I'm sure somebody really smart told you to do that.
Is that also where you'll be able to find like measurements and stuff of the house too?
If they've got them.
Okay.
Yep. So, like if you hire a third-party company and you have invoices for anything, you can put them in the attachments. It doesn't just have to be those few things.
Okay.
All right. Moving along. Buyer's obligations. Okay. Sellers representing that they've owned the property for less than 1 year. Seller represents the property that they've owned it for at least 1 year, less than 1 year, or they do not yet own the property. How can the seller not yet own the property?
Subject to contracts.
Subject to contracts. So you guys will see this with wholesalers. So you're on the right path when you say investors, but once the deal is closed and they've already bought it, then it would say less than 1 year. So what I do is I find Genesis, okay? And Genesis has this house, she needs to get out of it. And I say, listen, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to give you $10,000. You can go ahead, you can move out, you can go do whatever you want to do, go live wherever you want to live. I don't care, okay? Yet I'm going to procure the note in the meantime, pay your mortgage, maybe make the payments for you so she still has ownership. Because once she transfers ownership, the note is going to be called due on her property. So I keep it in her name, but she has to get out. Okay? Then as a result, I go ahead and I put it on the market. I hire you to be my agent, put it on the market, or I put it up for sale by owner by myself. Okay? Lindsay comes along to go ahead and purchase the property off of you. Yet I'm representing as the seller, you're my agent. She's the buyer or buyer's agent, right? And as a result, I don't currently technically own the property yet. So when the deal goes through, Genesis is gonna sell off on the property, but I'm gonna get the proceeds of it because I gave her $10,000 to get out. Or there's gonna be a transfer of ownership, and I wouldn't do a power of attorney, but I've seen that before where I have power of attorney over just the sale of this property. That's okay. She doesn't wanna give me full power of attorney because then I can like ruin her life, right? Okay. So again, I'm giving you guys a lot of different scenarios and something you're not probably gonna really run into all that often. Okay. I've got Kevin Angle with Right Angle Properties. He's actually going to be coming out and talking to us, I think, in October about wholesaling and how agents can work with him and vice versa. I've been working with him for years, and there's a lot of times where he's just like, hey, I need you to just list this thing for me. Because he sells them on his own, yet we work together doing stuff like that. Okay? Lead-based paint, we've already talked about that, right? Assessments, we've already talked about that, yes? And as you can see, right, they are or are not confirmed. They are or are not proposed. And then you guys want to get specific as possible because who are they proposed or confirmed by? Is it the HOA? Is it the town? Is it the county? Who is it?
The HOA, would you
Yes.
get them to like, I guess there would be some sort of letter that there is a proposed one.
So the HOA is not going to give us anything, okay? Basically because they're lazy, glorified property management people who didn't make it in real estate, okay? So, sorry. Anyways, nothing against HOAs. They usually just tend to be a lot more difficult. However, and they're not regulated by anybody, and they're the only other place besides the lender that can call for foreclosure on your property, which is wrong in my opinion. You guys I don't really like HOAs, okay? Yet, you're the real estate agent for Genesis Home, okay? How do I know that? You gotta come and show me a contract? No. I talk to my homeowner and my homeowner alone. I don't talk to you. I don't care if you're a real estate. You're the buyer's agent that's gonna be buying from. I don't care. I only talk to the homeowner. It's the only person, homeowners association. So when you need anything like that, you have to request, if you're the buyer's agent, request from the listing agent to talk to the seller. If you're the listing agent, request the seller to get any and all information about it. Okay? What I do is I always request that they give me the CC&Rs and the bylaws, even if I've already sold in that neighborhood before. Why?
They're updated.
Bingo. What if I haven't sold in that neighborhood in 2 years, right? Okay? And then I can tuck those away and keep those for me just in case I ever need them. All right. This is where you put in all the information for the homeowners association. Okay? As you guys will see, let's go to, oops. All right. So on here, is there an HOA in here? No, none. Subject to HOA, you guys can see, it says no, it is not, okay? Subject to CC&Rs, undiscovered, look at you. Instead of just saying no, I like it, okay? That's CYA, she's covering herself, okay? You will see, yes, it's subject to HOA. It will usually say mandatory, okay? Typically, they're mandatory for the most part. There are some HOAs inside of Ballantyne Country Club, okay? I'm sure the same thing with Peninsula Yacht Club, okay? Where you're subject to these mandatory HOAs, and then there are additional HOA dues. So if I live in the Peninsula Yacht Club and I don't want to be a member of the yacht club, do I have that option? Maybe, maybe not, right? I don't know the yacht club enough. They do have that option, that you don't have to be a member. What if I want to be a member of just the clubhouse? Because I'm afraid of water.
Yeah, they have like different
Wait,
packages.
hold on, yacht club,
Of the
right?
stuff you can do. They have different packages of like what you can do for
Yeah.
golf or tennis, or if you
Yeah.
want yacht club for just your boat.
Yet I promise you there's some section of that that's mandatory, right? Okay.
Well, it's not for either club. Those are
Huh?
Both of the clubs are optional. But
The
they have,
clubs, but to live there, the
Oh, they have
HOA
their
still has a
own.
mandatory, and those are addition,
like the mailboxes and codes on your house and stuff like that.
whatever it is, right? I know that some are mandatory, and you guys can also see this is another area for negotiation for you. Longview Country Club in Marvin is probably one of the most exclusive country clubs in all of Charlotte area, okay? it is $12,000 a year just to be a member and live in there. And that doesn't even get you into the tennis club and everything else. And so a lot of times, if I'm selling a house and I want to make it look more attractive to you, I will go ahead and pay for your dues for the next year for the golf club, because that's another $12,000, right? Okay.
So you can do that with anything, though.
You can negotiate with anything.
Anything.
Legally. And you got that smile on your face right now. Chelsea, I'm not trusting you with where you're
No,
going.
it's just, I guess, because I have two association fees, like you were talking about, one that pays the management company and one that's the association, so like you could pay off the management fees or something.
Yeah, so I sold the very first house I ever helped a buddy of mine from college buy. We sold 2 years later. He made a bunch of money, so he was happy with me. The HVAC unit outside was from 1981. Okay, that's as old as me, literally. Okay, so we went ahead and we sold the property, and we knew we weren't going to replace the HVAC. So I said, listen, you need to put the bells and whistles granddaddy package on that HVAC for a warranty. And the people came to the table and we said, we're putting a warranty. We know it's from 1981, yet it was still working. And I told Ken, I was like, Ken, dude, you didn't try and replace this in the last 2 years you're in the house? He goes, I have been trying to kill it for 2 years and it won't die. He goes, I wasted this money on these home warranties for the last 2 years, specifically just trying to kill the HVAC, and it wouldn't die. So as a result, we agreed upon terms. Glo Kearns is an amazing RE/MAX agent. If you guys ever have the opportunity to do a cross sell with her, she's awesome. And she's like, pay. She's an old Southern lady. Pay, this is what we need to do. And I was like, okay. As a result, we had to put a 2-year home warranty on it with all the bells and whistles. It was a $1,600 warranty, because when you're covering furnace and HVAC and those other things, so you can go ahead, and this is where you guys need to be smart, think outside the box. In order to get a deal across the finish line, what is the problem, Genesis? Why won't your buyers move forward? What is the holdup? And see if we can figure out a way that we can solve the problem. So yeah, whether it's special assessment fees, which again, those are pretty much, you're gonna pay for those as the seller, okay? If it's country club fees, if it's elongated home warranties, whatever, okay? And everything's negotiable. Plant Leland cypresses for them, I don't care.
Is there a specific place that you can find the HOA bylaws, or you just contact them?
You can. You can actually go online, and for $112, you can get them. Yet, I'm never going to use that, because I can just go straight to the seller and say, Genesis, I need you to call the HOA company and get these for me.
I'm actually just curious for personal too, because I live in an HOA, but I have no idea what the bylaws are, and I feel like I should know them. So
Do you own or you rent?
to rent.
You have to talk to your landlord.
Management company would know.
Because, and this is why I'll tell you guys not to buy them, is because the bylaws can change on an annual basis. So if you're going to, and believe you me, there's a lot, because we had a book going of all the HOA CC&Rs and then the bylaws, and we were like, this way we'll know. So any neighborhood we go into, right? You're thinking like I was thinking. And it was just like, this is just stupid. We just asked for the seller every time. It was just wasted time for us. But the CC&Rs are the basics that are there. It's just like writing this contract. Any addendum that's on here supersedes whatever's written on there. All right, moving on. We good with HOAs? I'm not. If you guys couldn't tell. All right. So removal of property. Okay. When does the seller have to have their stuff out of the property?
Isn't it agreed upon?
I guess you could. By the time they sign on that dotted line, they could have movers out there at the house while they're signing on the dotted line. Once it's exchanged hands, that's it. Okay? So you sign the property over to me. It gets recorded. Once it is officially recorded, I get the keys, and then I can go into the property. Now, this is what you'll see a lot of times at the closing table. Here, just hold the keys, okay, yeah, no. And for those of you on Zoom, I was passing her keys prior to recording. Don't do that, guys, okay? And if you're uncomfortable about that situation and you're the seller, what I do is I give the keys to the attorney. and I tell the attorney, I say, do not release these until we're recorded, please. And they say, okay. And that way, if the attorney releases the keys, not on me. Bless you. It's not on me, right? Okay. If now I have attorneys that have before just said, hey, here's the keys. Don't give them. I'll tell you when they're recorded, and then you can give them to your buyer. Okay. In which case, not really I would just give them the buyer and say, hey, whatever. I'll let you know when you can go in. Okay. A lot of times we don't have this issue. Just be mindful. Okay. Because if you're closing at 4:37 on a Friday afternoon and your property doesn't record in time, and they've got a moving truck outside ready to go, okay? So when are we going to close, guys? Early in the morning. How about we just don't close on Fridays? Right? Let's close the middle of the week. Okay? I never like closing on a Monday or a Friday. Because attorneys are always jacked up from all the crap that happened over the weekend and the ones that went under contract, and they're all disheveled as it is. Okay? I close on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, preferably. What time of month do I want to close? Middle. Okay? Typically, I've got, who's millennials in here? I think all of you. Yeah? Wow. Jesus. Okay. It just made me feel old. Thanks. Okay. So typically with millennials, first-time homebuyers, they've got a lease that's going to be up at the end of the month, right? So what I'm going to tell them, we're going to close in the middle of the month. And then this way, you guys can go ahead and have 2 weeks to move. Sorry. Tom Bramhall was calling me. Yeah, Tom. If you guys ever want to get in a magazine, Tom Bramhall will get you in a magazine, promise. End of the month, attorneys are jacked. Beginning of the month, they're fixing all the things they screwed up from the end of last month. I want to close middle of the month. Middle of the week, middle of the month, in the middle. Wasn't that a show back in the day? I think it was. That's preferably. I'm just telling you guys what's going to cause you less headaches in the future, okay? All right. You know what? We'll stop right here for a second. Talk about title. Good title, okay? What happens if you guys are going to go and close on a property? In this state, it's 1 to buy, how many to sell?
2.
What's that mean?
If you want to buy it when you're single and then you get married and you both need to find a sell it.
Correct. So we are what is called tenants by the entirety. You're not tenants in common. Okay? So Leanna, you have a house. We decide to get married. No prenup, no free trader agreement, no quitclaim deed. Those are the 3 things that get you out of it. Because we're in love. Okay? She owns $1 million house on Lake Norman. What do I own? $500,000 home on Lake Norman. What about your car? What do you drive?
Kia.
A Kia? Okay, I got an F-150. I own half of her Kia. She owns half of my F-150. Because it's considered property. We pay property taxes on that every year, right? A lot of people don't realize this. And you guys need to know this, okay, for when you get into what I call the triple threat of real estate, where it's just not working out, honey. Okay, we are done. Janice is going to be our real estate agent. She's going to go ahead and sell our entity that we have together. We agree upon whatever we agree upon, and then I need to buy a place. She needs to buy a place. That's why I call it the triple threat, which is why as a real estate agent, you want to play nice, okay? I never want to be recommended by the divorcing wife because then the guy's always giving me dirty looks, okay? I'm serious, guys. I know this sounds silly, but it's serious. If you want to do it and manage it the right way, you've got to be equal to all parties. You can't take sides, okay? I'm serious. And as a result, if you're worried about, now, how long do we have to be separated before our divorce is final? Huh? 1 year. Yet we're selling a house 2 months after we separated, and I want to go buy something else. And I go buy something with Genesis. Does she have rights to that property. Absolutely. She owns 50% in anything I buy. I own 50% in anything she buys, unless free trader agreement. Okay, that's where that is used in those situations where you can buy whatever you want to buy. I'm going to buy whatever I want to buy. Okay.
That like if you knew a divorce was happening or coming, like
No, we've already decided we're done.
already decided.
Yeah, we're done.
Okay.
But I'm not going to go rent a place for a year. I'm going to go put my money into another investment. And as a result, you're going to sign a free trader agreement so I can do that. If she wants to put up a fight with me about that, I'm not going to sign one on her behalf either. Okay? And I can take her to court for it and it can be forced. So a year and a half ago, I bought a house with a woman and her name was on the deed. I don't really know why because I paid for the whole thing. No, never mind. We're not going there. Okay? In which case, I wanted to keep the house. It was not a free trader agreement. She had to sign a quitclaim deed for an undisclosed amount of money because money and people are funny. Okay? As a result, I got to remain in the home that I'm still in to this day. I didn't have to relocate my son and do all that stuff. And that was a quitclaim deed. Okay?
You do that if you want to stay in the property and have them off the deed, but if you want to buy something else while y'all are still together, you have to do it free.
And those are the typical forms. Go consult your local attorney.
Okay.
Okay.
You mentioned that the prenup can get you out of the to sell part.
Yeah. So when you do a prenuptial agreement, okay. So I'm done with her. We're gonna get married. Okay. And you have a $2 million. I'm just moving all the way around, right? So you've got a $2 million house that you have been paying off for the last 10 years, and you only owe $400,000 on it. So I could technically be entitled to half of $1.6 million when we get married. Unless in the prenup you say, these are my assets, these are your assets, and we keep everything separate, and you can design a prenup any way you want. So you keep the $2 million house, I get my property that's $500,000 over here, and then moving forward, if we purchase anything together, then we'll be either equal partners on it, or we'll decide at that point in time.
That's why I asked, because like one of my prospect buyers, her and her husband, like they have a prenup, like her husband owns a huge property with her house. But like she wants to buy, she has never bought a house on her own. So would
So
she technically be a first time home buyer?
So I would ask the attorney to take a look at the prenuptial agreement, because it may say any properties moving forward that, like, okay, so for example, if you and I want to move forward on a property together, I'm going to say, Genesis, I'm going to put this one just in my name, it's going to be mine. And as long as that's in the prenup, then I'm covered. If it's not though, I'm not covered. Or we could say, okay, anything in the prenup that we put in both of our names is going to be split 50-50, whether we make money or lose money on it. So again, it's all in how it's drafted, and it can be drafted 1,000 different ways. So good little side note on divorces and prenups and all that fun stuff, right? Do you guys love my personal experiences and how they come into play? Ever.
Or get a prenup if you do.
And I've never been married, and I still had to do a quitclaim deed and pay somebody off. Okay.
Wait till you get the house?
Yeah, I got the house. I was dumb. I was in love, so I put her on the deed, and I shouldn't have. Anyways, moving forward. Deed and taxes. Okay. And again, because James, I know you're on here. This is different South Carolina. South Carolina, it's tenants in common, not tenants by the entirety. So whatever you own, you own. It's whoever's name's on the deed. All right. So deeds, taxes, and fees. Who's going to be paying for the transfer? Okay. There's always a transfer of fee. Okay. This is another thing, Chelsea, that you can negotiate in here. That, you know, we'll pay for the transfer. We'll pay for a portion of the proration in taxes. Anything you can go ahead and put in here. And then, of course, the most common, which is this line with the seller shall pay at settlement blank towards buyer's closing costs. Let's talk about closing costs for a second. What are closing costs?
Paid from the seller to go towards closing.
Say that louder.
Money's paid from the seller to go towards closing costs.
But what are closing costs?
attorney
closing.
fee, the lending fee.
Okay, so I heard you say attorney, loan officer, LO,
Any inspections or money due at the time of closing?
inspections,
Or appraisals?
Title search, e-recording.
title, deed, miscellaneous. I had a runner have to run it down there, right? What about down payment? Nobody said down payment. You have to put a down payment, right? 5%, 10%, 20%. Can the seller pay for my down payment?
If it's in the contract.
Give me that look.
If it's in the contract.
I mean, if they're gonna contribute some part.
The lender will make you put a certain amount. Yeah.
Down payment cannot be paid by closing costs. Okay? It's also known as mortgage fraud. Okay? Any fee that the buyer incurs, just like you're saying, the inspection, you look at there's a crack through the brick, I want a structural inspector out there. The title search, now title deed, that's usually all jumbled up inside the attorney. Yet when you go to get a loan on a property, you guys are all millennials. Has anybody bought a house here? Okay. All right, when you guys go to buy a house and you're going to go get a loan, this is why when I sat down and met with each one of you guys when you interviewed here, I talked about Keller Mortgage being a zero down loan, right? Okay? Because when you come in and you apply for a loan with me as your loan officer, Genesis is an application fee of $900, okay? And that may sound like a lot of mortgage companies charge $900 for an application. Then there's what's called a loan origination cost. So if you're getting a loan for $300,000, 1% or $3,000 is going to be your loan origination cost. And then I'm going to need to do a flood certification on the property. That's going to cost $47. Rebecca, I'm going to need to do your credit background check. That's going to cost me $75. I'm also, Liana, I'm going to need to do a criminal background check to make sure you don't have any warrants out for you. That's another $95. And if you lived in Georgia or Vermont, there's an extra fee, by the way, just FYI, because those states require you pay them. Flood certification, I already said. Appraisal on the property, right? $500 to $600 appraisal fee. All of these things are closing costs that are associated with the deal. Okay. On average, $300,000 house. Just the loan officer fees here is going to be about $6,000. Okay. Now, what do they do with that? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, because you just have to make a down payment amount as the buyer. We'll just roll all the rest of the fees into the loan, and you can pay them off over the next 30 years at this interest rate charge. Okay? So the only thing that they cannot pay is your down payment. Everything else under the sun, they can go ahead and pay your moving fees for you if they want. Okay? Want to rent a U-Haul for you. Okay? Now, what's the important thing about this settlement? The closing costs. Important thing, very important thing. If you don't use it, you lose it. So if it says $6,000 there and you can only total your closing costs to $5,800, you're going to lose $200. It's going to go back to the seller. So what do? Rent a U-Haul?
Buy points if you got enough money.
Say it again?
I said buy points if you have enough money.
Oh, James. Yes. I'd say if it's $200, put a home warranty in place for $400 or $500, right? Yeah, what James just said is genius. Okay? So on my last property that I bought was a foreclosure. Okay? I'm a CDPE, Certified Distressed Property Expert. Bought a house for $305,000 December 2nd, 2016. And just so you guys know what I'm talking about, I just did a refinance on it for $412. Okay? Less than 4 years later. I'll show you that later. Okay? I got, what I know is that you can get a dollar amount in settlement charges. You can also do a percentage. Our state does dollar amounts, but foreclosures are owned by the federal government, so it's on a federal document where I got 3% closing costs. So who's my math people? 3% of everything, right? 305,000. What's 3%? $9,150. You're correct. Yes. So I got $9,150 in closing costs. It's a lot of money, right? Because I was also getting a 3% commission of $9,150. And I got them to throw in a $1,000 agent bonus because it had been sitting on the market for over 5 months. So I got another $19,300 off of the house. Yet when it came down to it, the closing cost portion, $91,550, my closing costs were only $6,400. So what did I do? Because I'm going to lose almost $3,000. James, what did I do? We lost James. I bought a point.
Sorry, I was on a call.
No worries. So, but I did exactly what James said. I bought a point. Point cost me $6,000. So now my closing costs were $12,400 and change or whatever. Yet $9,150 was taken care of. So you got to get creative around these things. Good job, James. Okay, negotiation, repairs. Again, this is stuff that you guys all need to read through. Prorations and adjustments. This would be when we're talking about taxes. Okay, what other adjustments would we have? Let's go back to our favorite category, HOAs. Ooh, it's 4 o'clock. Sorry, we're running long. This is good stuff, yeah? HOAs. HOA transfer fees. Okay? Let me tell you how much I love HOAs. Okay? So what HOAs used to do is they used to say, listen, Genesis, you're a new buyer coming in. In order to affiliate and join our HOA, you have an initiation fee of $300.
But then you kind of do need it because
What?
I see why he put the name too. You heard me?
What did you say?
I see why he put the name too. Oh shit.
You can understand and read it.
Okay. All right, I think we're good. All right. Let me go back to. All right. Shoot. Come on, just work. Okay. So I got your HOA transfer fee because you're joining the neighborhood, right? And then they said, it's not really fair. The buyer has all of these costs, which we just listed out. So what North Carolina said is, listen, the transfer fees are going to go to the seller. So Rebecca's going to have to pay the transfer fee of $300 now. So you don't have to pay the $300. Okay? So the buyer wins. The seller's making money off the property anyways. So it seemed like the right and fair thing to do, except their HOAs. So they said, fine, the seller can pay the $300 transfer fee. Genesis, we have an application fee that you're going to need to pay of $300, and they started double dipping. And now this is common practice. And why? Because there is no state or federal regulation on homeowners associations. There should be. And what's going to happen once you put them into effect? Because I've been in the state capitol for the last 5 to 6 years fighting for this. And what's going to happen when you put somebody into effect to regulate the HOAs? The HOAs are going to have to pay them a salary to monitor them, right? So what are they going to do with their HOA fees? Catch 22. Okay? So when we talk about adjustments and prorations, again, Chelsea, go back to, hey, Genesis, I'm going to pay your application fee. Okay? There's another little caveat that you can throw in there. How do you find out your application fees and how much they cost? Ask the seller to ask the HOA. Okay? These are all the things that they kind of glaze over that you guys don't realize till you get to the closing table. And then Liana's pissed at me because I didn't properly explain this stuff. Okay? Home warranty. All right? Do we want to put a home warranty on our listings? Yes. Why do we want to put a home warranty on our listings?
Makes it look like you don't have anything to hide.
So a couple reasons. The day I go live with my listing is actually covered under that home warranty at no cost to the seller. Seller does not pay for the home warranty until the closing date, and that's actually when it goes into effect, yet the property will still be covered in that time frame. Pretty cool, huh? Awesome. Now, what also happens after the fact is that if you go ahead and do a due diligence repair request and you need things fixed, I'm covered under a home warranty, and I look more attractive to the buyer now, who I'm selling the property to, because when you close with me, you get a 12 or 13-month home warranty. Some people may not want to put a home warranty in place because this property is only 2 years old. We're not really going to have any issues, this, that, and the other thing. Fine, great, grand, wonderful. It's still covered under the 10-year wall-to-wall from the new home construction, so on and so forth. Awesome. Okay? Yet it may become a negotiating tool later. Okay? So make sure you have that conversation with your buyers and sellers. Okay. Delay in settlement or closing. We already talked about this with the automatic 14-day extension. Possession. Buyer possession before closing. Seller possession after closing. Okay. And possession subject to the right of tenants. Excuse me. I have tenants in my property in Indian Trail right now. Okay. It's a good deal. I make good money off it every month. Yet I may just kind of get to that point in my life where I say, you know what? I don't want this property anymore. So Linz, I'm going to sell you the property. Okay. It's got tenants in it already, so it's already going to start working as a cash cow for you. Okay. Yet they signed a 3-year lease with me. And they did. Last June. June? May. June. So they're going to be in there for the next 3 years. Well, maybe Lindsay wanted to move into this property for herself. Tenants' rights supersede the sale. As a result, she cannot evict them. She can have a conversation with them and say, listen, I'll give you guys $5,000 moving expenses or whatever, and you move out on this date and you sign a contract with that. Sure, you can make that happen. Okay? Yet, people have what's called the right of quiet enjoyment. You guys may remember that from pre-licensing. Okay? Now, Lindsay buys the property. She's going to use it as an investment property. Okay? And they can stay as long as they want to stay. Yet, she gets some calls from the neighbors that there's some funky smells coming from the house and they think they're cooking something that's not food in the kitchen. Okay? I'll let your Breaking Bad minds run wild. Okay? Can she go in and inspect that property?
She already bought it?
She bought it. She owns it. I'm out of it.
Yeah, she gets to go in there whenever she.
Nope. Bingo. She got to give 24 hours notice before she comes in and does an inspection. Because again, it violates the right of quiet enjoyment. Now, when you're talking with investors, sometimes that's great. Now, my tenants pay $1,550 a month. That's the rent. Can she take the property over and change the terms of the lease? No. It supersedes this contract unless she can work out some other agreement with them. We had an agreement for them to pay $1,600 a month. That was the deal. And they asked if there was any negotiation room. And I said, not unless you want to extend the lease. And they said, what's that look like? And I said, 3 years and you get $50 a month off. They said, we'll take it. Now, I don't have to worry about a tenant for 3 years, which is why I took it, because I'm still making, when I was renting it before, I was only getting $1,500 a month. So I'm actually still making more money. So it's a win-win all the way around. Okay. All right. Now you get to this section 14 addendas. Okay. We're going to dive into a couple of these, and I apologize, guys, because I know it's almost 4:30. I'll wrap this up as fast as possible. We've talked about FHA, VA, lead-based paint. We did not do loan assumption because you guys are really never going to see that. Backup contract addendum. Just going to touch upon this quickly. Don't do it. Okay. Genesis is my buyer's agent, and she shows me Lindsay's property, which we all know is already under contract. And I say, I want to put in a backup offer. Okay. And then what ends up happening is I pause my home search process because I really want this property that Lindsay has. And as a result, you're doing nothing but sitting there just waiting for it. Okay. Now, if somebody wants you to do a backup addendum, I mean, it is what it is, right? However, I'm not even really going to want to entertain that because with such low inventory right now, with 97% of homes closing, it's probably not going to fall out of contract. And if it is, why did it fall out of contract and what are the reasons? So I'd stay away from backup addendums altogether. New home construction addendum, you're never going to touch it because they have their own contracts. Homeowners Association, disclosure, condominiums, resale statement. This is going to be a case-by-case scenario when you run into that. Seller financing addendum, again, you're not going to do too much of that. Short sale addendum, foreclosures, HUDs, distressed property, short sales, anything like that, come see me. Me and Katrina are both CDPE certified. Come see us, okay? We'll walk you through what that looks like. And then vacation rental addendum. You may have a little bit of that up here at the lake. And you guys have all heard of Airbnb. There are certain areas, and I'm going to say this wrong. Cornelius can do Airbnb and Mooresville can't. Other way around? Okay, flip. Thank you. I knew I was going to say it wrong. Cornelius cannot do Airbnbs. So if you have waterfront property in Cornelius, the lease has to be longer than 30-day window, okay? Mooresville is different. I think Cheryl's Ford is as well. I think Cornelius is the only one that is not, but don't trust me on that, okay? That's really going to be the only thing where you guys see anything with vacation rentals.
I think Cornelius has 7 days.
I thought it was 30.
I think it might be 7.
Really? Okay.
We had a friend that used to rent out their place, and they got a bunch of stuff from the town of Cornelius because they weren't doing.
Well, you know what? Let's talk to an attorney or something on that, just because I don't want to give you guys any wrong information. And just because you knew somebody that rented it didn't mean they were doing it legally either. So, okay. Tax deferment and exchanges. This is going to be a lot of times focused at investors. As you guys know, as a single individual, you can make up to $250,000 on a property before facing capital gains taxes, as long as it's after a 24-month window. If you're making too much money off your property, go marry somebody you trust, because then you can get up to $500,000. Don't go marry somebody because you're selling a property, okay? All right, the parties in the contract, who's it binding to, and right of survivalship, okay? So for example, if there could be another agreement. So Genesis and I got married, right? Yet she had 2 kids before we got married. And as a result, her right of survivalship actually goes to her 2 kids. So our $2 million house that we own together, I own 50% of, and the kids each own 25% of. Okay? So look at how all that stuff is drawn up in this state. If there's nothing drawn up and she passes away, it defers to me as her spouse as long as we were still married at the time of death. Okay? The kids, I can just boot them out. That's it. Nothing. They get
How
nothing.
you dare to mention
What happens if there's no surviving members? Who gets right of survivorship then? The state. Defers to the state if there's no surviving members. Okay. All right. Guys, talk about computation of days. Everything in our state is done on calendar days. 5 p.m. is end of business in the state of North Carolina. Not so much in South Carolina. 6 p.m. now. And they just switched from business days to calendar days. Let's talk about wires, okay? You guys are working with a buyer. It's really important about wire fraud. I talked about this in the listing class as well, okay? Because this actually happened. Where, let's just say, Chelsea at Law PLLC. And that is the lawyer that I'm using for my closing. And so I give her the buyer instruction, or the wiring instructions for the buyer. Okay, or not you, I'm sorry. I give it to Lindsay, she's my buyer. Okay, so Lindsay's gonna wire her money to Chelsea at Law PLLC. And then Lindsay gets an email from Chelsea at Law PLLC. And because she's reading it quickly, she doesn't notice the extra L in there because they made a fake email account. It says here, wire here. Okay? Now, first of all, guys, if there's a wire that's going out of the country, you can recognize that. Don't do it. Anything that says Cayman account, Swiss account, don't do it, okay? You need to advise your buyers because Lindsay's getting ready to wire $45,000. This actually happened where somebody lost $45,000, okay? And if you allow them to wire it, they're going to be happy with you, right? Now, it's on the buyer and the attorney, okay? If that money is gone, you're never getting that money back. And no matter how bad Lindsay wants to sue me or sue the attorney, it's not going to get her that property. Property's going to go back on the market, okay? So what I do is I have the buyer directly call the attorney while they're there doing the wire. And as a result, send all the money over to make sure they read off the number is correct, everybody's good to go. It's just a safety precaution because I never want to have that conversation with Lindsay about how I just screwed up and lost all of her money, right?
Sorry, can you repeat that again? What do? You said you're in the attorney's office when they call the client?
I give them the phone number to the attorney's office and I tell them when they're at the bank wiring the money, call the paralegal to verify the account number that they're sending the money to.
Thanks.
Yep. It's just an extra precaution. Now on the seller side of things, okay? So Rebecca's my seller and she's going to be buying another house and we're doing a same day closing, okay? So we're closing on the 1st today, right? Genesis is buying Rebecca's house. Rebecca's buying Claudia's house, okay? As a result, when she gets her proceeds, the lawyer is going to wire the money to her, right? The lawyer is going to wire the money to the seller, right? Correct. Yes. Yet, she's closing with Leanna Law over here for Claudia's deal. So I'm going to tell my seller, you have them wire the money to the other attorney. This way, my seller never touches the money. And as a result, there's no chance for her to screw up wiring it to this attorney. Make sense? It's just a smart way to do business. And then if there's any issue with the money, you had my money, you wired it to the wrong place, or you screwed it up, you need to give me my money, right? Okay? Or whatever the situation is. But make sure if they don't have to touch the money, don't worry about it. Now, she needs $40,000 for her down payment on this house, and you're wiring her $62,000. So you wire 40 here and 22 there? No, you wire 62 here, and this attorney will pay her dividend at closing via wire or check, however she wants. Make sense? Keep the seller out of it to protect them. Cool? Cool. Awesome. Okay, as you guys can see right here, now this is something I'll get yelled at by people for telling you guys, but notice information right here, buyer's address, seller's address. No. I am never going to put my client's personal information on a document that is not only going to be shared with another real estate agent, but also shared with the other party. Absolutely not. Now, on your office forms, your buyer agency agreement, or your listing agreement that they don't see, yes, you put their information. And this came back to bite me because I was working with a good friend of mine, Chuck. I love Chuck to death. We sold his house. And I said, do you believe this? This idiot agent, they were Keller Williams agent, unfortunately, put the buyer's email address on here. And Chuck was like, that is dumb. And I go, don't worry, I didn't put any of your information on there. We get into repair negotiations, and I can't remember what it was. It was a lock or something stupid. And he's like, the guy really wants that? I was like, that's what they told me. I was like, I'll show you the email. I know it sounds silly. It is what it is. What did Chuck do? He went back to the offer to purchase and contract and reached out to the buyer directly. Luckily, we were okay. Yet, what happened if that listing agent had lied to me? What happened if I had lied to Chuck? Right? That could have blown up the entire deal. Luckily, she was telling, I was telling the truth. Luckily, she was telling the truth too. Okay. This information on the agents, yes, you got to fill this stuff in. Okay. All right. And then acknowledgement receipt of monies. Okay. Obviously, you fill out this top half, listing agent acknowledgement of receiving the due diligence fee. seller acknowledgement of receiving the due diligence fee, and then the escrow agent's acknowledgement of receiving the earnest money deposit, and then if there was additional earnest money. All right, come on,
Diligence, sorry.
go ahead.
You need, the listing agent needs to sign, to acknowledge that their seller is.
The listing agent needs to, so I'm the buyer's agent, you're the listing agent, here's the check. You need to sign that you received it. You go give it to the seller signs a form that gets to you that says the seller received it.
But I
Because
don't have to, like, for instance, my seller, they just want to pick it up and go.
they still need to, at least you need to have that seller one signed. They went and pick it up from the buyer themselves.
Not from the buyer's office.
Then the buyer's agent would still have them sign that. I would say make sure you're involved in that, but you want to see that signature. Because if I give it to you and then you lose it or whatever, okay, I found a due diligence check sitting in Harris Teeter, just laying on the ground.
Oh my God.
I picked it up and I looked up the address and called the agent, was like, hey, I've got your due diligence fee. And they're like, why? I was like, it was laying on the floor at Harris Teeter, but they weren't happy. They weren't happy with the buyer's agent. But the thing is, you could say, PJ never gave me the due diligence check, right? So that's why I have the listing agent sign whoever it exchanges to. Okay? All right, let's get to the really, really long name, professional services disclosure and election form. All right, guys, this form is any services that you have provided to your clients. Okay? Now, if they come with their own lawyer, this is where it's waived. Yet if you provide them with McNaught and Clements, this is where you go ahead and put down the selected by, right? And ordered by whoever.
Wait, so if they, okay.
Any services you're
And
providing
you
to them.
Don't recommend you waive it, or you,
No, that they found on their own. So like I recommend Gallup Home Concepts to do the home inspection.
Yeah.
Right? Yet they decided to go ahead and use their brother-in-law, who was a home inspector.
right,
And so as a result, I'm not going to be held liable if that guy screwed him over in any way, shape, or form.
so you.
Because let's say, so the measuring company we talked about earlier, right? As a seller, I tell you here, use this measuring company, right? But if that measuring company screws up, it's on them, that the measuring company, yet it's a poor reflection on me as the agent because I recommended them.
Right.
So they want to know.
You only put on there who you recommended that they.
Yeah, this
use.
not a, this is an us required form, not a
right.
North Carolina Real Estate Commission form. And you may have to go back and amend this form later. So if there is structural issues and you have to bring out a structural engineer later and they're like, Chelsea, I don't know anybody, recommend somebody, right? And you better find somebody good because it's going to be your name on it.
Hey, PJ, can I ask you a question?
Yeah. You don't have to ask me a question every time. You can just ask.
Well, sorry. I mean, it's kind of weird because, I don't know what's happening in the class and we're remote. So I just want to make sure it's cool. But anyways, on that form, if you back up to that professional service one where it said the attorney, again, like, so on the weekends, the buyer didn't know what attorney he wanted to use, and so, but we needed to make, pick somebody to be the escrow agent. So I had suggested McNaught and Clements. And so on that line, like I still don't know who he wants to use for a closing agent. So on this line, if the attorney is just going to be for the escrow agent, would I still put in that I selected them? Or is that attorney only specifically referring to who's going to do the closing?
So on this form, so if it is a different attorney, I would go down below survey where you can put anything you want in and just put escrow agent, McNaught and Clements. That was recommended by you if they choose a different attorney to go with.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Okay. James, do you have a question in there too?
Yes, I was going to say it's worth it going over this whole class just because I was about to fill that out and have the buyer initial it all.
Nope.
Well, it's not supposed to be the buyer to initial it?
No, it is. What he's saying is he was going to have them initial everything like he recommended it, I believe.
Oh,
It's
No,
only
for instance, well, McNaught and Clements is who we're using for the closing attorney. I
Yep.
would be the one that initials selected. Yeah.
no.
Okay.
Hold on. The buyer initials it, but right here, you see where it says waived and selected?
Yeah.
So you would check. It's not an initial, it's just a check. Like an X in the box. Right? That I selected this.
Okay. We're doing X's. Why does it say initial at the top?
You know what? I've always done X's. Maybe it's supposed to be initial. That might have changed. I could be wrong. Let me circle back. Let me figure that out. Because if so, then they would initial the column because they initial at the bottom. So why would they initial again? The only place the agent's going to initial is down there at the bottom. Okay.
Cool. So I was doing it right the first time.
You were. It looks like you put the buyer's initials in the box now. I apologize. I haven't done this in 2 years. I need to brush up on my forms. All right, guys, this is the final 2 documents. These are, or I'm sorry, nope, there's 3 documents. So this is termination of contract with mutual agreement with release of earnest money. Okay. Now, typically, this is after the due diligence period, right? So why would we release the earnest money or a portion of the earnest money back to the buyer? Why? Seller just said they don't want to close. Seller says, you know what? Now, yes, you could go ahead and sue them for right of specific performance. Okay, I get that. Yet, if a seller comes to you and says, okay, I got $2,500 in due diligence, I've got $1,500 in earnest money, right? So that's $4,000. I've got fully invested in this property. We've had a change of circumstance. We don't want to sell anymore. Is it okay if we give you $5,000 back? You can give more back, right? And that would actually probably go under a different, where the attorney would have to draft something in addition to. Yet, let's say for whatever reason, listen, I just had a death in the family. I got $1,500 tied up in earnest money. I'm not going to be able to close on this property. My whole circumstances have changed right now. It's only a week after due diligence expired. Can I go ahead and get a portion of my money back? And Lindsay says, I'll give you $500 of the $1,500 back. Okay. Or she gives me all of it back because she feels bad for me. Next form, without release of earnest money. Okay. Now, what happens if the buyer and seller can't agree?
And attorney will hold on to it until they.
The escrow agent, whoever the escrow agent is, will hold on to the money until it is ordered to be released by a clerk of court. Plain and simple. Okay. They are not allowed to release the monies to one party or another if there's no agreement. And then this is the release of earnest money form, which is just a straight up release. All right. That's all the forms. That's how to do an entire offer to purchase and addendums. I got you a present. What questions you guys got? I'll stop this shit right now. There's a lot of stuff. What do you guys got?
Okay, so can we talk a little bit about how to make multiple offers?
Sure.
Or look stronger?
Sure. Let's talk about it. I got 14 minutes. What do you want to talk about? No. Go ahead. Thank you for being here.
I'll see you tomorrow. Yep, see ya.
All right. So how do we make our offers more attractive? What would you guys say? What would you guys do? Let's help Rebecca out. How do I make my offer more attractive?
Shorter due diligence, shorter closing.
Shorter due diligence. Say that again.
Attractive due diligence fee.
So a high diligence fee, smaller closing window, maybe.
Or you have the full delivery.
What? Why don't we just have a conversation with the listing agent? What would look better for the seller? Right? Yep. Less closing costs, right? They're going to net more money. What else? Maybe a shorter due diligence window. Maybe I do a due diligence window for 12 days. Right? Time or money is typically what a lot of this stuff comes down to. What if I'm going in with an FHA loan? What if I can switch it to a conventional? Is that going to look more attractive? Yeah.
What about like expiration of offer when you send it in, like not making them get back to you at a certain time?
So that would be a special provisions addendum that you would have to add on to an offer to purchase and contract if you wanted to put a timeline on the expiration of offer.
Do you think that help kind of push them along, or you think it would deter them?
I would say do not put that in there because if I'm in a multiple offer situation, I want to see what cards you have, and you say I want to know by 10 o'clock tonight. If you wanted to buy it by 9:59 tonight, you're going to want to buy it tomorrow, and that may turn me off to you. So I would say do not put that in place. What else? How else can we make our offers look more attractive?
Reappraisal?
What's that?
Oh, you mean their offer, sorry. I was thinking like, maybe, like you said, obviously more purchase price, but like that window you were saying with the closing, like can you, I don't wanna say you're lying if you say you're gonna close on this date, but if you know that you have that grace period, like.
If you can move it up as soon as possible, that's a lender conversation. But you want to close as quickly as possible. Yet, what if when I'm talking to Genesis, she's like, "Oh no, my guys don't want to move out to the end of the month." Well, then it's not beneficial. Again, ask the listing agent. Let me share a really quick story with you guys. You guys know I'm a storyteller, right? So I went out to look at this property, and the guy said, "Okay, PJ, you helped us buy this house. You're going to sell it now. Tell us what it's worth." I said, "Well, what it's worth, or what we're going to list it at?" And he said, "Okay." I said, "Well, it's worth $215,000." I said, "Well, we're going to list it at $210,000 because there's literally been one house that is sold in your neighborhood in the last year. It's Steel Creek. Everything around is $400,000 plus." I was like, "This thing is going to fly. So we're going to put it at a lower price point than it's worth. And if you don't like it, you just don't accept the offer." I said, "What it's going to do is it's going to cause it to go above $215,000, and you guys are going to make out." And he reached in the drawer and he said, "I had an appraisal done last week on the property and it came to $215,000, which I didn't know. So luckily I knew how to do a good CMA and I had a good price on it. So we put it on the market at $210. He loved the idea. He was an engineer, so I had to work through a ton of math with him. We went under contract for $222,500, and we shared the $215 appraisal with everybody, so they knew. Okay. As a result, what do we know is going to happen? We're not going to appraise, right? Appraisal was just done for $215. Okay. So what did I make them put into the contract? I made them put a letter that they signed that said if the property did not appraise, they would pay an extra $7,500 over appraisal, because that's what they were at their offer. They already saw the appraisal for $215. They decided to put an offer in $7,500 over. I wanted to make sure they weren't going to try and renegotiate me back down after the fact. Now, is that letter enforceable? Absolutely not. It is not part of the contract. It is not enforceable. Yet I wanted the buyer's signatures on there because I wanted their commitment in writing. Emotion comes when you put pen to paper. And so I got their commitment. And then we got the appraisal. Guess what the appraisal came in at? At value. Why? Because when you do a conventional appraisal or you just do an appraisal on a property, it's how long is it good for? 1 day. So when you're gonna get into multiple offer situations, these are a lot of different things you guys can do to make your offers more attractive. Okay, I got a call in 8 minutes. I know this went like an hour over, so I apologize for that. I think we covered a lot of good stuff here though, yeah? I'm gonna keep doing these classes if you guys like them. Yeah?
We love them. Thank you, PJ.
Thanks, Kara.
Have a good one, everybody.
All right, we will have this recorded and put up on the YouTube page. Guys, make it a great day. Talk to you soon.